He tastes a wound in the night of minds and names it a threat to man. He calls the Silent Sisterhood to ring the golden throne and cages light with math older than terror. He breaks the amniotic hush of the webway and writes a bridge into a stranger cosmos where another order binds thought to will. He chooses to step forward because one human future is all futures to him. The breach opens like a pupil dilating, and he goes through. The sky above Imperial Center splits along a line no engineer draws. Night becomes a golden fissure at noon. Clouds roll inward as if inhaled by a colossal lung. The first scream is not human. It is the squeal of repulsor lift lanes collapsing into eddies, lanes of traffic folding, airspeeder columns turning to corkscrews. The figure steps out, not falling, not flying, but rewriting the idea of descent until gravity agrees. Height resolves, bronze skin like sunlit metal, plate armor wrought as if every cathedral on 1,000 worlds agreed on one face. Around him, the air goes silent, then sings. The void he carried across the breach bleeds white heat and a smell like rain after a fire. On level 5127, a sanitation foreman named Kel Arton looks up from a railing. He knows engines. He knows how a bearing groans before it dies. He does not know the sound of a hole closing in a universe, but he knows the convulsion of an atmosphere when a god's ankles displace it. He begins the first prayer he has not said since childhood and stops halfway, embarrassed by the habit. A sky bus flips end over end as the lane buckles. The Emperor is a grain of coin set on the flip's path. His hand lifts, palm outward, no motion wasted. The bus stops, not with a jerk, not with a crunch. It stops because he says so, because for one precise instant, he convinces its atoms this is their preferred arrangement. Passengers hang in their belts, white-eyed and silent. A child sobs once and then quiets, as if scolded by a stern teacher who will tolerate no noise. He turns the bus upright and lowers it. Every deck of the megacity listening to the scream of overstressed girders and the crosstalk of emergency bands. Red icons bloom across command boards in the Imperial Palace's tactics pavilion. Officers watch a gold firefly thread down a column of traffic, restoring order by existence alone. Center traffic control to all units. Collisions in Sector Fela. Who has eyes on that light source? Unknown phenomenon. Holocams are blinking out when they try to resolve. Wait. Transmission stabilizing. Feeding to office of the Supreme Chancellor. No, Emperor. Priority Oreg. He isn't the only mind that feels the arrival. Deep in a tower where red-robed advisors whisper to one pair of yellow eyes, a skeletal smile widens. In a Star Destroyer's ready room, a man who has killed his name and half the galaxy to protect a wife, now dust, listens to a ripple pass through the Force like a stone dropped into a still lake. It is not a dark ripple. It is not light. It is pressure. It is judgment without anger. Darth Vader rises. He does not put a helmet on yet. He goes to a viewport, and he knows Coruscant shivers because something new has joined the argument between life and death. The man in gold lands on a platform choked with stormtroopers and air wardens who arrived to secure a parasite shuttle that crashed when the lanes knotted. The troopers tense. They do not fire. Their sergeant lifts a fist, then lowers it slowly, when the glow source resolves into a figure with a human silhouette and inhuman gravity. Identify yourself, the sergeant says, because that is what training and duty require when a myth steps off the edge of a deck and does not fall. The figure's eyes are fire behind a calm face. I am the guardian of man, he says. The accent is ancient, consonants like stone on stone. Whose city is this? Imperial Center, the officer says, proud reflex beating fear by half a heartbeat. Seat of the Galactic Empire. Empire, the Golden Man repeats, tasting the word. The syllables ring like a plucked string. He looks past them at the endless canyon of steel and light. I feel man in every layer. I feel their hunger and their hope. I will not see them wasted. An emergency director in a dark grey uniform runs up the ramp, breathless, eyes bright. She is not a noble name. She is logistics given legs. Whoever you are, she says, you just stopped a bus with your hand and kept my lanes from killing 1,000. Thank you. I need more of that, or a lot of families are going to starve this week. Our relay stack is fried. She is the secular ally the moment she chooses to speak in a crisis, and he chooses to answer. He raises an open hand. His aura dims, tightens. He opens a space in the din and addresses her like a general addresses a field medic. What is failing? Traffic grid 5-9 in failure, she says, words clipped. Load balancing heuristics froze during you. We're rerouting, but the drones won't accept commands and the lane gates are in a loop. He nods as if she said, left flank weak. Show me your gates, she signals. Hollow lattices blossom out of the deck, lines of light representing a city that is more idea than stone. The Golden Man spreads fingers in the projection. This would look like magic to a child. To him, it looks like an algebra that solves itself when shown a stern teacher. He pours will into a shape. In his mind, the web of hexagonal lanes becomes the honeycomb of a hive city. He has overseen such before, with 1,000,000 hungry mouths below. He writes a new rule. The gates reopen in a Fibonacci cascade to damp oscillations and prevent a resonance crash. Hums shift, drones obey. 1,000 micro-collisions do not happen. And then he pays. The armor at his temples cracks like a line in old enamel. Sweat, or something like it on a body that can decide whether it sweats, beads. Far away, under mountains older than any Senate pillar, the golden throne snarls. Chained psychers clench their teeth until gums bleed. Custodians hold the Sisters of Silence steady as the anti-voice of the blank sharpens, eating the shriek of the bridge through. The Emperor holds his avatar in a foreign field, and it costs. On a high balcony, an ISB agent looks down with binoculars and sees a disturbance that refuses classification. The agent's name is Kest Orlin. He has never believed in gods, only in leverage. He reports anyway, because this is leverage shaped like a man. ISB Special Investigations to Palace. He speaks into his cuff. Unregistered phenomenon intervening in civil infrastructure. Potential psionic. Potential Jedi. Recommend immediate cordon and doctrinal response. Do not use that word, the duty officer snaps back. Our Lord tolerates no. Then call it what it is, Orlin says, taking the risk because fear runs along his bones anyway, and it feels good to dress it in insolence. A thing that moves the world with thought. Stormtroopers part as a new column arrives. Polished white light armor flawless. Paint so clean it gleams blue in the light. Not garrison troopers. Royal Guard advance scouts. Crimson cape folded and carried instead of worn, because to wear it is to kneel to a throne. They do not kneel. Their captain raises a pike and points at the man in gold. By order of the Emperor, the captain says, voice filtered and calm. You will present yourself for evaluation. The Golden Man studies them as if they are a set of tools and he must decide if the sacrifice of breaking them is justified. There is another who calls himself Emperor here, he says to the emergency director without scorn. Let us see him. She swallows. You don't ask to see him. He sees you if you are lucky and die if you are not. They face each other, the two kinds of authority a city produces. A logistics director who counts truckloads. A captain of an elite who counts deaths. The Golden Man speaks without looking at either. No, he says. There is a third kind. the one who decides whether either of you are needed. He does not raise a weapon. He extends his hand and the royal guard feel weight. Not pressure like gravity, weight like duty, compounded and compiled until their certainties bend. For a second, knees want to bend too. The captain fights it with the iron in his spine and does not kneel. Respect flares in the golden man's eyes, quick and gone. I do not answer to your emperor, he says, and then softens, because a ruler who wants to keep men does not speak in ways that make them break unnecessarily. But I will speak to him when I choose. Please, the director says, sensing that there is no protocol that will keep blood off the grates if this becomes a duel of pride. If you can stabilize our gate stacks, I can get you a straight shot through secure lanes so you don't cause more tremors, and the palace can see you without us flagging you as a drunk freighter. He nods. He turns again to the hologrid and writes another rule. Until countermanded, emergency lanes will accept only his signature key, a lattice of prime numbers and memory. Later, on another world, in another time, a mathematician will cry when she realizes what she saw and what it means about thought and number. Your name, the director says, because gratitude wants a referent. He gives her one that is both true and comprehensible. Call me the Emperor of Man. Her mouth twitches. We have one of those. Then call me the Emperor, he says, not arrogant in his voice because arrogance wastes energy. When I leave, you may call me what you wish. Command feeds fill with his lattice signature. Palace eyes mark it. Palpatine leans forward on his throne and finally laughs softly. A wheeze that tastes of iron and burned paper. Curious, he whispers to a room that is always listening. Bring Lord Vader. In orbit, a wedge of steel turns its eye toward the city. The Devastator is an old ship in a young war, and it dreams of hunt. Darth Vader walks into its command pit as if it is his body and breathes out to seal the habit. He speaks 3 words. Prepare ground insertion. He wears his mask now. Flesh becomes symbol. Symbol becomes weapon. The Golden Man accepts a security skimmer because the director insists he not walk. Every step jostles systems and panics algorithms. She rides with him, knuckles white on the console. The Royal Guard flank, suspicious and exact. ISB agent all-in requests and receives permission to attach under the clause for irregular phenomena with political consequence, which is the clause ISB uses for anything it wants. They pass over levels where factory stacks exhale and lower where light is green with algae lamps. News spreads the way it always does in empires, faster than permission. A street corner slicer tries to capture a clean shot. His gear freezes and then shows him his own face, tired and 30, for 7 seconds, and he cries because he has not looked at his own face that honestly in years. They reach a secure gate. The skimmer stops. The director looks at the gate and at the Golden Man and at her hands. She realizes that if he chooses to go through, he will go through whether the gate opens or not. He looks at her hands too. You have saved lives by asking, he says, voice private, pitched for her alone in a city that weaponizes spectacle. Keep asking. That is how cities remain human. He steps out before the gate opens. He walks. The gate opens because every bolt in it suddenly remembers a time when it was awe and wanted to be part of something larger. Inside, the air is colder. Statues line a hall. They are not saints. They are victory memorials, men and aliens carved to show harmony under law that tastes like conquest. He walks under them the way a commander walks through the muster of a legion. A voice comes to meet him before a body does. It is low and wet and chosen. You enter my house without my leave, and you call yourself ruler, the voice says. You presume much, stranger. The Golden Man looks to the side and says, without bowing. I judge by effects, not names. Palpatine appears at the far end of the hall like black smoke condensing around a smile. He wears humility like a blade. His eyes slide over the golden man and widen a fraction. Here at last is a presence he did not bait into being. Here at last is a will that does not ask his permission to be large. He says something harmless and terrible. Welcome. The golden man does not smile. He inclines his head as a general to a general. I am here because something in this galaxy uses your people like weights on a scale, he says. I do not accept that cost. Ah, Palpatine says, mouth sharp. You are a moralist. I am an engineer, the golden man says. And that is an indictment. In the war room behind the throne hall, admirals and ministers gather because their badges said they could, and because they know that sometimes proximity is the only protection when power bends. Admiral Terran Vorlan, mid-50s, scar over right brow, a career won by competence, not politics, studies the live feeds and makes a choice. He does not pretend this is above his grade. He does not pretend he will decide the fate of empires. He decides to speak while the Inquisitor is breathing in. My lord, Vorlan says, stepping where he can be seen. The phenomenon stabilized multiple grids and prevented catastrophic failure. Civilian losses are minimal. We must consider that as intent. ISB agent Orlin shifts weight to interject. He does not get a chance. The Inquisitor gets there first. Inquisitor Calix, long-limbed, eyes like polished obsidian marbles, moves with the careful speed of a predator who is also a priest. And intent is accessory to capability, Calix says, voice smooth and dry. If a being can stop a city, it can stop a fleet. If it can stop a fleet, it can stop a throne. Doctrine dictates containment, analysis, and neutralization if alignment is not proven. Vorlan does not look away. Doctrine also dictates we avoid making enemies where we may find allies. Jedi speak of allies, Calix says, as if spitting out a rotten seed. Jedi are dead, Vorlan says. A new presence enters the conversation without moving lips. The golden man cuts a glance back, measuring rooms behind walls as easily as he measures the strength in a soldier's forearms. He can feel the one with the smile. He can feel the one with the knives for eyes. He can feel a third one rising, bright as a beacon dipped in oil. He looks back at Palpatine. You make fear into a tool, he says, not angry. It is effective. It rots. Palpatine smiles wider because he thinks this is an argument he wins. Then let us show you the alternatives, he says softly and raises his hand. Sirens begin to sound in the low layers. Vorlan leans to a display. He sees it before anyone says it aloud. Across 5 sectors, a transfer of prisoners has gone wrong in the same way at the same time. Speeder vans that should have turned left turn right. Doors that should have stayed closed open like mouths. The creatures within are not political prisoners. They are not petty thieves. They wear rag-woven collars and have smooth skin and spined backs. They were taken in the outer rim, and their handlers speak of them in the same tone they used for kyber crystals during the war. Containment breach, someone says, voice very small. Project Null handler bays in sub-levels, 700, 705. Calix does not flinch. Vorlan does. He knows a codename when he hears one that should not have a civil application. Palpatine's face does not move at all. This city is not a place for your moral geometry, Palpatine murmurs, and the sentence is crisp enough to leave a paper cut. It is a living thing that eats those who cannot make choices. Choose, stranger. Help us cage what you have set loose by stepping wrong, or watch them chew through a district and say, it was not your concern. He did not set them loose. But any commander knows that blame is less use than action. The golden man moves without a farewell. Guards part because they are not the kind of fools who stand in front of a train. The director is already back in the skimmer, eyes wild. They say sub-level 702. That's a walk to the core spines. If it reaches the water mains, it will make a city sick, he says. And that is worse than 100 dead in a corridor. He drops from the balcony. He does not jump. He does not fly. He writes a path in the air like a scribe, writes the simplest letter he knows, and the air obeys, and the city spine meets him like a ladder he ordered built the day before. He lands in the low levels. The light is bad here by design, because bad light is useful when you want people to forget their faces. People are running. They are the kind of people who always run when alarms sound. Workers who cannot afford to believe their safety matters. Gangers who know the difference between contraband and a monster by the smell. A boy with a bootleg holoprojector who pauses to capture the gold because he has never seen anything that glowed without hurting. He sees the null handlers. They are not human. They look like something bred to crouch in trees, but there are no trees in them, only hunger. The air around them feels like a mouth that forgot how to salivate. He steps forward to punish the thing that built them. They see him. The force ripples near their skins like water over wax. Their handlers designed them to make Jedi useless. He's not a Jedi. He's a thing that made the idea of Jedi possible in some ancestor time, then judged it and found it lacks. They leap. The first dies in a solution designed in a thought. His palm meets its breastbone and says no to motion. Its heart stops where it is. Its body keeps trying to finish a leap. It began in a different paragraph. He picks it up by the throat and turns it into a wall, clean and quick. The second slides into a gap in his golden aura. He let the aura pull tight at the gate to keep the city stack stable. And now it costs. Its claws find the seam between greave and boot. Its toxin isn't chemical. It is a frequency. His nerves are a circuit board too mighty to be fried by so small a spark. But a spark thrown into a forest still burns a leaf. The leg flares with pain that tastes like copper and regret. He takes the pain and sets it aside. He has fought things that wore gods like gloves. A small dog with bad teeth does not take a finger from a soldier. He reaches and writes a rectangle in space. It is smaller than a prison and kinder. It is a quiet. He sets the next two handlers in it, and they shriek without a sound because their sense of momentum is a religion, and he has paused a sacred text. He could kill them all. He could kill them faster than words can carry the fact. He does not. He breaks legs and options, not necks. He renders them into problems for a guard unit that can process them, and a politics that will not. He sees a child under a stair, bare feet on cold steel, eyes too big for her small skull. He points and the stair moves, groaning, until it becomes a ramp with a rail. She runs because he made a path she could understand. Behind him, 20 stormtroopers flood the hall in a white wave. The captain from before is at their spear. He takes in scene and adjusts without ego, because ego kills squads. Stun rings, he orders. Flank left. Nets on my mark. They move as one body. The golden man nods once. He respects craft. The last handler wills a bubble of nothing toward him. A sphere that makes light limp where it passes. It is designed to turn a force throw into a sigh. He does not throw. He steps inside it and closes a hand around the handler's skull and whispers a benediction for things used without consent, and kills it, because mercy sometimes wears iron. Sector clear, the captain calls. Push to 703. The golden man feels the current shift. The city is a beast. Its arteries know where the heat moves. He knows two things at once. Above, power concentrates, the smell of a duel beginning to steep the air. Below, whistles call. old signals in a new empire. He stands with blood on his greave and pain bright in one leg, and 1,000 kilometers away, on a dead throne, his other body keeps a son alive under a mountain. He breathes once, deeply, and a line of stress along his cheek glows, then fades. He will not burn this world to save it. He will not let it eat itself to prove a point. Codec note: the Emperor's avatar stabilizes infrastructure by imposing a local axiom set. Maintained imposition taxes the throne's output and requires a silence perimeter to suppress feedback harmonics. On a terrace 5 levels up, ISB agent Orlin watches the clean violence and recalibrates. He is not a religious man. He recognizes a higher class of tool. He activates a secure channel not because doctrine tells him to, but because instinct does, which is older and better. To Lord Vader's approach controller, he says, Agent Orlin embedded in Sector Feeler. The target is, he thinks of words he can use that do not reduce him, a human male of unknown origin with strategic level abilities, behaving within civil guard parameters. From a control perspective, he displays a bias towards stabilization rather than domination. A pause. A voice calm and modulated answers. Your characterization is noted. He clicks off and swallows. He thinks, it is good when the thing that can kill you might also prefer not to. It is not enough. In the palace, Palpatine leans closer to a rail and watches the life support, as if a spider watches threads. Send them, he says. The Royal Guard captain hears a coded order through his pike and gestures. A door opens and machines rise. Not droids. Droids are furniture to this regime. These are something else. Tethered pylons with rings of mirrored facets. Kyber optics hum within. Their name in procurement is anodyne mirrors. Their function in doctrine is force interference. They are the first draft of a weapon hammered together from temple fragments and lab accidents, meant to shine a light that makes shadows honest and tricks useless. They move like stingless jellyfish over streets, where their rings face, a feeling like the opposite of prayer spreads. The scum in gutters stops vibrating for a second. The golden man feels his aura hiss and flatten. His leg wound is suddenly louder because quiet makes pain easy to hear. He turns to face one mirror. He measures it. He sees the crystals inside, stolen from a dead religion. But crystals are crystals. Their regret is not relevant. He lifts both hands. He does not blast. He hums. A sound rises so low it arrives as pressure before it is heard. The mirror shudders, facets mist with condensation. Their alignments slip one at a time. It keeps shining. He hums a fraction sideways. One lens cracks. The ruby light hiccups, then collapses to a harmless pink. The stormtrooper squad cheers before they remember they should not cheer. Please stop cheering, the captain says softly. And they do, because what you do next is often the only thing that matters. More mirrors come. The Empire does not do one of anything. The director calls up in his ear, because she has decided the city is her remit, still, even as history cinches its belt. They'll push you toward a containment zone, she warns. It'll look like a plaza with lots of nice sight lines. Don't go there. Your advice is noted, he says, and thinks it is good to be advised by someone who knows the shape of a trap. There is movement beyond the mirrors. Shadows draw together into purpose. A sound like anger pumped through a flute approaches. Vader's shuttle descends, wings folding. The craft a black knife with a priest's mask. The Emperor of Man looks up and down at once, up to consider the foe, down to weigh the cost of looking up. He is not surprised when the shuttle does not land near him. It lands 3 blocks away, in the plaza the director warned about. Sight lines like a textbook illustration. Balconies for snipers, fountains for civilians to die in if someone wants a reason. Vader chooses the killing ground because he either intends to kill or intends someone else to try. The Golden Man starts toward it. Stormtroopers move to flank. The captain lifts a hand, counts to see if he is still leading. He is. They move. They turn a corner, and the air hums wrong. The mirrors have a friend. A field blooms like a dome, and the Golden Man's teeth ache. Not null. Not exactly. It is a place where his axioms refuse to sit. He could overwrite it, but the time would cost and the noise would draw, and the child under the stair does not need a god teaching the city new tricks today. He steps around it. He takes a stair down and a stair up. He goes through a restaurant kitchen where a cook freezes with a knife in hand, then nods once, because after a life in a kitchen, you recognize someone who is working and then goes back to chopping. He comes out into the plaza and sees him. Darth Vader stands like a tower built to be hated. Black armor drinks light, cloak moves like rumor. He breathes. It is not a sound meant to inspire fear. It is plumbing, pump and valve, a machine coaxing air through betraying meat. It still inspires fear. That is what icons do. The Golden Man stops 20 meters away. The echoes of mirrored light die out around them. The plaza has rings of soldiers and rings of empty space and rings of cameras winking red or dead because someone upstairs is choosing their framing. Vader tilts his head, which is the only way to show a question when you have no face. The Golden Man answers before asked. "I am the Emperor of Man," he says. Vader breathes. "I serve the Emperor." The voice comes through a speaker and a nightmare. It is neither human nor otherwise. It is duty written in rust. "Then you and I must talk about what those words mean," the Golden Man says, and a faint smile cracks the seriousness because he enjoys precise language. Vader does not raise his blade. He asks the question he cares about. "Do you serve the light?" "I serve man," the Golden Man repeats, and that is either answer enough or heresy. The plaza holds its breath. On balconies, snipers wait. In the war room, Palpatine leans forward to feel the tension sing in his bones. In the kitchen, the cook with the knife stops again, because life has a rhythm and something just missed the beat. An alarm cuts everything off. It is not one the city uses lightly. It is a sound war makes when it wants everyone to listen. Vorlon swears because he recognizes starfighter warnings when they land inside civilian blocks. Outer Ring reports, a tech calls, voice too high and trying not to be. Multiple pirate signatures burn through the hyperlanes on our back scattered during the event. They spoofed our net. They're hitting the shipbreakers at Phila Dock 14. We have ties in the air, but the mirrors are messing with the guidance and... Palpatine smiles with teeth. He looks at the Golden Man through a camera and makes a delicate gesture as if telling a joke. "If you are what you say, stranger," he says into a channel that knows how to carry whispers, "you can save 1,000 families and be late for your execution, or you can try to strike a god and let 1,000 die. We will watch and learn either way." The Golden Man turns his head, and in that moment the grade 7 lesson of power becomes a human story in every cheap hollow across 100 levels. A ruler asked to choose which fire to put out. The calculus is old. The answer is older. He points one finger at the plaza fountain. Water rises. Not all of it. Enough. It becomes a sphere caught in a net of air that knows a command when it hears one. He flicks, gentle, like a father swatting a mosquito. The sphere flies. It hits a mirror where it will make the worst mess. The mirror stammers. The dome field flickers. He turns to the captain. "Hold this ground with mercy," he says. The captain nods because men do what they are given when it feels like a banner and not a leash. Then the Golden Man leaves the duel a beat. before it becomes a duel. And that is the first victory of the day. The victory of choosing the enemy the people cannot see over the enemy the cameras want. He crosses the city in 3 steps that take 15 seconds and that cost him blood in another place. On Terra, something old groans under a mountain. At Fellah Dock 14, the world is smoke and orange. Pirate skiffs dart like dogs around herd beasts. Their target is a row of ship-breaking yards where families live 4 to a room and starve 6 to a shift. The yards hold secret fuzzy weapons that will pay for a year if fenced tonight. The pirates are not a random swarm. Their tags read Red Hand Nebula and Hash's Fleet, which is a lie because Hash is dead. But men who live on crime love old names, the way soldiers love old songs. They have stolen 2 interdictor jammers and strapped them to gutted tugs. They have cut local net. Ties scream in and lose lock at the edge of something that is not a net and not a storm. Warden curses again because the mirrors are interfering with his own solutions, and that is war's joke. He orders line-of-sight targeting. Gunnery crews cheer because they like tangible things. Then they swear because the pirates crash a tug into a crane, and the crane falls. The Emperor arrives as the crane begins to go. He lifts both hands and becomes load-bearing. The crane weighs more than the bus. It weighs more than a choice. It is trying to obey gravity and him at once. The metal screams as joints decide which god to worship. He can hold it. He can also stop 2 skiffs that see 300 workers under the crane and angle in to harvest the panic. He cannot do both without paying in currency that will matter later. He pays. He splits attention into a braid. He writes 2 hands that are not his hands. He holds the crane in one thought and the skiffs in another, and he instructs his pain to be quiet because the city is listening too closely. People run. A woman trips. A boy bends to pick up a carved bantha his father made. He is punished for love by momentum and saved by a palm that smells like metal and rosemary from 1,000 years ago, when Terra still had gardens where he walked to think. He sets the boy by a pillar and meets the woman's eyes because men forget to. She stares back. She will tell this story until her granddaughter thinks it is a myth, and then sees the scar on his greave on a news replay and believes again. He turns the crane into a safe thing, slow. He lowers it into a rest it can accept. He sets it down like a priest sets down a relic. He turns to the skiffs. They are already netted by a stormtrooper squad that arrived on foot, because a speeder would have taken longer. He nods and moves on. A pirate in a patched brown coat, with a Bond sigil tattooed on his neck, raises a disruptor and fires at the back of the gleaming head, because when gods walk into your docks, you shoot them like dogs from neighbors. The shot curves. He spends a lip of power like a coin flicked to a street musician, and the street musician plays better for the next hour. The tug with the jammer begins to spin. The crew inside screams for help they don't deserve. He does not like making workers into corpses for a lesson other men will ignore. He reaches and pinches the jammer's signal through a math he designed to break a different machine in a different war. The tug shudders. It crashes into a scrap pile and does not explode because he says not yet. Vorlin's tires come in on manual. They slice 2 skiffs and scatter the rest. The pirate leader calls off. Any plan that assumes the Empire cannot adjust to its own foolishness is a plan that ends with a collar. The Golden Man stands in smoke and swearing, and knows the plaza did not wait for him. He knows because the city sighs in a way that sounds like a blade warming. The breath machine on the black man begins to speak at the edge of his hearing. He turns, and then the mirrors bloom again, closer, smarter. Their light is redder. They have learned his hum. They have learned his fingers. They learned because the city carries everything you do to your enemies if your enemies built the city's ears. He does not break them this time. He leaves. He leaves because the cost vector spikes and the throne growls and the sisters silence phrase, and because pride is a stupid horse and he refuses to ride it into a ditch. He leaves because he can fight the Empire head-on or he can choose the battleground. He chooses. On the way back, he passes the sky bus he saved. Someone has hung flowers where the brakes cooked. He takes that into his ledger. It is a line that will matter when lines later read, 10,000 dead, and one choice. Vader waits in the plaza. He has not moved much. He has not pursued. He does not need to. His competence is a gravity. He knows the other man took a necessary bait in the docks. He respects the calculus. He despises the answer. You come, he says when the golden man returns, and you leave. You choose. A true ruler does not choose what the enemy offers. A true ruler does not forget the poor to prove his spear is sharp, the golden man says, and the sentence is not a blade. It is a rule, and rules can be sharper. The mirrors hum. The plaza narrows. The white armored ring tightens, then stops, then tightens again. Because even stormtroopers doubt, the captain flattens a palm. He will hold his men at the tension line until someone else makes the mistake. From a balcony, Inquisitor Calix watches a city hold its breath and imagines a thesis. We are not prepared to cut this man, he says to no one and to everyone. We require a tool made for him. In the war room, Palpatine opens his hands in delight. He smells a choice. He loves choices. They feed him. And in the dock smoke, a boy holds a carved bantha and tells his mother that the man made the crane talk, and the mother says, he moved it. And the boy says, no, it obeyed. And somewhere between those two words, a galaxy picks a side. He saved the docks. The plaza waited. The city learned the shape of his choices and answered with traps. The mirrors drift back in like jellyfish that have learned to sting. Their facets no longer look for a single hum to break. They chirp at each other in a ring, building a lattice of interference that crawls over the plaza like frost. The air tastes chalky. Skin feels like it forgot how to be skin. The stormtrooper captain lifts 2 fingers. His line tightens, then stops. The men remember the order. Hold the ring. Watch for civilians. Do not shoot the thing that just held a crane over your cousins. Discipline saves cities. Vader does not move. He is a dark stone at the plaza's center. He does not ignite the blade. His attention is the blade. You return, he says. I return until I am finished, the golden man answers, and the mirrors bite a little harder, curious dogs. He looks past Vader at the fountain that is still missing part of its skin. He looks up at the windows that face the square, decorative panes, polarized for rich eyes. He looks at the seams in the paving tiles. His gaze takes inventory like a quartermaster with a war to feed. He claps once. It is not loud. It is exact. The sound hits the mirrors at a fraction off their favored ratio. They hiss and correct. He claps again, a little wider. The correction overshoots. The plaza's stone joins in, tiny echoes. The fountain lip pings in sympathy. He steps left and drags a boot over a seam. The scrape is ugly. It is perfect. Drummers, he says without looking back. Find me a beat. The captain doesn't ask what that means. He points at 3 troopers who grew up near foundries. They know what sheet metal does when you hit it just so. They strip the plates from 2 service carts and a bollard cap. The first strikes are clumsy. The second turn the mirrors a delicate shade of angry. Up on a balcony, a kitchen crew leans out with pans. The cook with the knife doesn't ask permission. He starts a rhythm from memory. Shift change on hull lines, a dance his mother taught him. That long-ago festival before the taxman outlawed festivals. Second-floor shutters start to thrum as people join, without knowing what they join. The mirrors retune. Their ring stiffens. He changes time. What he does is not music. It is algebra taught to the hands. He folds the plaza's constants into a pattern the mirrors must answer with phase changes their kyber hearts do not like. He doesn't break them. He unmakes their appetite. One by one facets fog, not with condensation but with doubt. Tiny misalignments that make the array see itself as wrong. The closest mirror flickers to a safe mode nobody told it it had. The red gutters to orange to a soft industrial pink. Two more go gentle. One spikes hard to compensate and almost cuts him. He turns a palm and simply moves the spike sideways into a rain spout, where it boils water and hisses like a cat. Control collateral. The worst thing that dies is a cheap pipe. Vader watches and understands the method even if he hates the mercy. You prefer to change fields, he says. Almost a question. Not to strike. Fields give orders, the Golden Man replies. Men live or die by those orders. You can either write them, or you can spend forever cleaning up after men who did. The final mirror squeals like a set screw turned too far, coughs light, and goes hollow. The plaza feels like itself again. Dirty, dangerous, full of people trying to make it to tomorrow. The trooper captain exhales. He had not noticed holding breath until it returns. A side street disgorges citizens who had been frozen by the wrong hum. They run, then stop to look, then run again, because wise folk do not linger near doctrine at work. The captain drops his hand. Ring holds, he says over the net. No fatalities. 2 concussions. 3 burns. Medics inbound. Vader's mask turns a fraction. You were told to present yourself. I have presented deeds, the Golden Man says. They will do for now. He does not wait to be encircled again. He walks the shortest line toward the palace. The captain throws a glance at Vader. Vader lifts one black finger. Hold. The ring reforms, not to trap, but to keep crowds from being crushed by their own curiosity. At the war room threshold, Admiral Vorlan meets them with a look that says, he has seen gods before, and they bled the same as men, but took longer to notice. He nods to the Golden Man. Not obsequious, not foolish. Respect between professionals maps faster than star charts. Your intervention, Vorlan says, keeping his voice level, prevented a massacre and disarmed our... He searches for the word that won't insult doctrine in the room. Devices without vaporizing 3 blocks. As the civil executive on site, I thank you. Inquisitor Kalix contains his posture like a knife still in a sheath. He steps into view with that liquid, predatory calm. As the doctrinal arm, I observe this creature learns quickly, he says. I further observe that learning equals escalation. We cannot allow a foreign agent to map our tools in our capital. Vorlan does not look at him. We cannot allow our capital to eat itself because we insist on being its teeth, he says mildly. The emergency director has a name now because the captain uses it. Director Senna Var, logistics, he tells the room, daring anyone to sneer. She steps into the circle with grease on her sleeve. She won't wipe it. The stain is leverage. He saved lanes, she says bluntly. He saved docks. He saved us money by not turning half a sector into slag when he could have. That's a metric you understand. Kalix's eyes roll once, like polished stones. I understand that mercy is a luxury in a galaxy ruled by scarcity. Scarcity you built, the Golden Man says. Not cruel, simply accurate. Scarcity is an order. Order is the only mercy that endures, Kalix says, taking the blade the Sith prefers and sharpening it for him. Tell the worlds of the Outer Rim that freedom tasted good as their children drowned in debt. Tell the worlds of the core, Senna Var snaps back, that your order tasted good, as their children forgot how to speak, because they were never spoken to without orders. Vader steps into the circle. He doesn't raise volume. He brings weight. Order ends war, he says, simple as a command. When people do not fear, they fight. When they fight, they burn. Fear is efficient. The Golden Man does not meet the mask. He meets the man inside, who insisted on the word efficient. He gives steel back. Fear is efficient, he concedes. It is also brittle. It requires constant rehearsal to stay useful. You build theatres of pain. Warden glances at the hollows where docks still smoke and workers still sort scrap by hand. He drags the conversation back to where it buys lives. We require a plan, he says. Pirates found our backscatter hole during the event. Mirrors interfered with our own targeting. If we are to cohabit a city with this new variable, we will write lanes for it. Palpatine lets them argue and then slides into the debate like oil into water. You will write nothing, he murmurs, smiling. You will obey. The room recognizes command like iron recognizes magnet. Even the Golden Man affords the voice attention. Then command wisely, he says, or be rewritten. For 2 minutes the War Council runs on data. Vorlon lays out tie losses, mirror drift profiles, civilian footfall with choke points. Senna Vartag supply corridors that must remain open. The captain notes exactly where panic killed and where it didn't. Calix contributes nothing but disapproval. Disapproval matters in empires more than oxygen. The Golden Man sketches a solution with what they already have. Retune the mirrors to rip their own field if they encounter phase variance in more than 7 points at once, he says. Lock them out of civil bands. Give them a floor that refuses to let them target windows with human thermals behind. Calix starts to protest. Vorlon cuts him without looking. Do it, he tells the tech. And if the thing comes back, Calix insists. It is here, Vader says, because he respects reality more than rhetoric. It will test us. We will test it. The Golden Man turns slightly toward Vader. You have built an order on the premise that people must be managed like floodwater, he says. I have built an order on the premise that people are the point. Show me your doctrine. I will steelman it for you. Vader's breath clicks. The Republic decayed, he says. Senators sold systems. The Jedi were weak and blind. Strong centralized rule ended corruption. A pitiless law ended wars. Mercy is exploited by those who weaponize confusion. The Golden Man nods. A strong center can end cartel governance, he agrees. Speed of decision can save lives, but pitiless law metastasizes. It solves immediate fire with drought. You starve fields to stop flood. Later the ground will not take seed. Freedom romanticizes hunger, Calix cuts in. Silk wrapping wire. It asks men to die for ideals instead of live for directives. Freedom lets men build directives, Senavar says, and her voice is not silk, and change them when they break. They could go on. They do not get to. The floor hum shifts. The air changes temperature without changing temperature. Every hair on every arm in the room remembers childhood fear, the uncaused shiver, the stories about cold spots in old buildings. In the lowest vaults of the palace, below the level where the temple's bones were robbed and rebent, something old wakes. It is not a person. It is an answer. It is a machine built on altar stones. It is a light that drinks definitions. Vorlon status boards fill with new glyphs. Techs scramble, then stop, because their icons don't map to any tool they own. Senavar grabs a railing and looks down the well at nothing she can see and everything she can taste. Vader lifts his head to a choir he hates. Palpatine closes his eyes like a man savoring incense. At last, he says. What? The Golden Man asks. And the question is not for knowledge, it is for warning. A lens, Palpatine purrs, unable to keep the pride from his mouth. A metabolism for power. The temple was a virgin's. We corrected it. Now it corrects anomalies. Red lines thread across hollows of the city. The lines don't mark streets. They mark habits, where people think certain ways, where gossip repeats faster than facts, where fears reinforce. The lines thicken where the old temple's foundations still ring. Project Umbral Lens, Calix says, finally pleased to be able to name his god. A city-scale anti-heresy phasing array, not a null, a demand. The field insists on coherence. The incoherent bleeds. The Golden Man feels something touch his axiom like a quill scratching a margin note. The throne growls across impossible distance. The sisters' ring tightens, sweat beads on a god's lip. Power scaling interlude. 1. The Emperor's will writes local axiom sets that reality honors because he is loud, where others are small. The umbral lens inverts that relation by amplifying the city's collective habit, its contiguous synchronized expectation of how things should work, and broadcasts it as a phase demand. His imposition must now argue with a chorus, not a vacuum. Every correction he writes is forced to prove itself against 400 million tiny assumptions. The cost to hold a foreign axiom under such a choir rises steeply with area and duration. His bridge strains, and the silence must widen to keep feedback from savaging the throne. The lens doesn't throw him. It makes holding expensive. He can still lift a bus. He can still lace a dock with safety. But every second he shapes more than a man shapes costs sisters' throats and psycho hearts. He realizes Palpatine built a weapon that doesn't cut his hand. It cuts his purpose. Disable it, Fallen says without looking up from his boards. His voice is flat. He knows he cannot ask for the thing to be turned off. He asks anyway, because men must record their requests on the day the machine wins. Palpatine smirks. It is a civil harmonizer, he lies. It keeps ridges smooth. Why would I disable serenity? Senavar feels the lie like a bruise. Because serenity that kills my staff on the way to work is not serenity, she says. Calix's gaze flicks to her, delighted. There it is, he croons. Conflict. We will see where his mercy goes when staying kind breaks what he came to save. The Golden Man turns toward the well. He does not need to walk to know a direction. He points his chin. Under the old temple, he says. The temple is mine, Vader says reflex. The words taste like ash and home. It has been cleansed. Then you will escort, the Golden Man answers. Or bar the way. Choose. Palpatine lets them choose because choices feed him. Go, he says, laughing under the words. Take the elite. Take your director. Take your admiral's eyes. Inquisitor. Bring a blade suitable for a god. I will watch. The Devastator's drop bays spit out a spear of men dressed for sacred work, not monks. Royal guards with pikes charged to puncture dreams. Purged troopers in black with grenade tubes that cough whispering clouds. An engineering cadre with sensor gloves and polite fear. Senna Var argues herself into the file because logistics must see things or they cannot be argued with later in budgets. Fallen sends his aide with a holomast so the Admiralty can see ground truth. Calix brings a coffin-sized case on a grav pad, his gloved hand resting on it like a priest on reliquary. Vader leads. They move through arteries the city forgot it had. Air grows colder without being cold. The lens's hum becomes a thought you keep forgetting. They pass a wall where ancient stone shows through modern paneling. Marauders scrawled prayers there when the temple still dared to ask the city for love, not obedience. Purged troopers scrape them by reflex because doctrine loves that gesture. The Golden Man touches the stone. He remembers a desert under stars. He remembers a boy who wanted to fix things faster than time would let him. He breathes once and does not take the memory. It is not his. At the first choke, the lens tests him openly. The corridor goes wrong by a degree. Angles feel unclean. Gravity leans. His axioms insist. The lens insists back. He could pry space set by set. He does not. He steps softer, becoming small where he has been large, letting the lens's demand wash past like tide against a rock. The sisters around the throne relax a fraction. The silence does not need to expand for this. Vader watches that exact humility and files it under dangerous. A ruler who knows when not to dominate terrifies him more than one who only crushes. Kalik signals. The grav case opens. Inside is a crown of black ribs around a dark crystal the size of a child's fist. It drinks the light it is offered. Null-crown, he says, unable to help himself. Pride treats faith like sugar. Synthetic isalamiri lattice. It does not erase. Nothing erases will, but it burns away scaffolds. Near it, his tricks are harder. Vader takes it without comment. He is not a sorcerer. He is a soldier given a better knife. The crown locks to the collar ring under his armor. The air near his chest goes suddenly honest. The golden man feels his fields lose their gloss within 3 meters of the mask. They meet the first guardians of the lens at the second choke. Not droids, men. Red-robed sentinels with helms like smooth coins. Their pikes hiss. Their stances say they have been taught to thrust into lungs with affection. Their faces are calm because they are paid to be. Vader raises a hand. Stand down, he orders. I am lord of this place. The lead sentinel glances right, as if listening to a whisper none of the others hear. He shakes his head once, regret in the motion. By writ of the highest doctrine, he says. No one enters the lens sanctum without trifold clearance. He looks at the golden man. Especially not intrusions. Senna Va steps forward like a woman in a street market, about to ask a butcher the price again, until the butcher tells the truth. Those pikes aren't for doctrine, she says. They're for people. Stand down. The sentinel loves his job enough to hate being called a liar. He lowers his pike to prove he's not. The golden man moves before the first thrust reaches its second intention. He does not kill them. He turns pikes into plows in gestures. A rotation here, a step to wrong foot there, a wrist kissed into numb. He takes 3 blows in close, deliberately, letting armor drink them so the men know he respects their craft. He leaves them on the floor angry and alive. Vader watches again, and this time jealousy stabs him, clean, fast. He once knew how to disarm without slaughter. The war burned that muscle. The mask breathes for him, and he remembers a hand that used to crackle with the itch to fix. The corridor grows as they descend. The architecture stops pretending it was ever civic. Stone swallows steel. The lens's hum is a word learning to speak itself. The city above feels far away, like a dream about sky while you drown. They reach a gallery flooded with the kind of light paintings used to have before white vanished from the palette. A disc sits at its center, a great wheel of kyber plates and leaded glass turned inward, turning the room into a mouth that wants language. Ritual marks line the rim. Some are old Jedi, most are older. Stop, Kalik says, and for once the word is not a power play. If we break it wrong, the rebound will scrape half the South Arcologies clean of belief for a day. Men will forget their names and keep walking. Vader steps forward into that warning without slowing. He is not stupid. He is sure. It is to be judged, he says. We judge. He does not reach for his saber. He extends a palm and lays the force against the lens like a doctor against a fevered brow. The null-crown swallows some of the churn and focuses the rest. The lens answers with a harmonic that makes teeth ache. Vader shifts pressure without changing force, leaning vector, not volume. He worked engines once, in a life heavier with sun. The Golden Man recognizes a peer at work and gives room. He moves to the opposite side and lays his will against the other flank, careful not to smooth, careful not to dominate. He writes a brace into the room, not an edict. Stone appreciates patience. It decides to hold, for now, because two strong hands are on it that do not fight each other. Attunement window, Senavar says. Eyes on a clattering array she doesn't like, but can read. 30 seconds before it kicks you both out or gulps you. Calyx glides into the periphery, like a spider, looking for the cut that makes the web more beautiful. He murmurs data to a scribe. Phase state, unstable. If we inject a dark side carrier wave here, he points with a long finger, we can brand his axiom as the error. The lens will train against him. Vorlin's aide blanches. That will make the city hostile to a class of behavior we do not fully understand, he says. We will be training the net against an unknown friend. Calyx smiles like a window with no glass. We will be training it against an unknown god. Vader ignores the chatter, because battle is a religion and liturgy distracts. He pushes 3 degrees left. The lens winds lower. The Golden Man rotates his pressure 2 fingers. The whine settles. The wheel shows them things. 1,000,000 tiny acts of habit that make a city. Women walking the same path because light is better there. Children cutting corners because corners feel like play. Gangs marking doors with chalk to tax tomorrow. The lens makes those acts into a choir that tells reality how to behave here. To bend this is to insult not a device but a population. The Golden Man does not insult. He whispers to the choir. He writes a clause. When a habit would kill a child, the habit will stutter and listen. He uses the city's own rules to carve room for mercy. It holds for 10 heartbeats, 20. He feels throne strain, then ease as the sisters catch the rhythm and sing, silence that fits between beats instead of over them. Now Senavar breathes and touches a control, rerouting traffic grid heuristics to stop feeding the lens context via civil bans. Tiny change, big effect. Doctrine hates losing levers it didn't admit were levers. Calyx sees what she does and lunges to prevent it. Vader's offhand lifts without looking. Calyx stops like a picture in a book. The gesture is small. The statement is enormous. Do not interfere, Vader says, and Inquisitors hear steel in a voice they thought they owned. The 30 seconds dissolve into 60. The lens settles on a new baseline, less bite, more demand. It still taxes the Golden Man when he is large. It no longer bites every limb when he steps. The first victory is a clause snuck into a god's contract. They pull back together. The wheel hums like a machine that remembers a kind of tune. The gallery breathes. A guard wept without knowing why. He stops and feels stupid. He will tell nobody. Senavar leans on her knees and laughs once, ugly with relief. We didn't blow up the city, she says. That's a good day. Vorlin's aide beams the holofeed to his admiral. Vorlin grunts. We can live with that clause, he says. We can't live with the people who built the need for it. Calyx inhales, gathers his dignity around him like a new robe. Temporary reprieve, he pronounces. The lens will learn. It always learns. They start back up. The lens does not chase. It doesn't need to. It is the room. It hums like a cat who will show whose bed this is in the morning. On the way, the debate resumes because it has to. It's not rhetoric now. It's logistics of souls. You talk about mercy as if it is a valve you open, Calyx says to the Golden Man. Who decides when it shuts? Who writes the list of who receives it? Me, the Golden Man says. without blinking and without pride, until there are enough of us to agree on a better list. Calix laughs at the arrogance. He does not see the humility embedded there. Vader speaks softer than before. Mercy made me weak, he says, and the sentence is true and false. It left me open to lies. Mercy lets you listen without obeying, the Golden Man replies. Lies require obedience. Listening is an art. Obedience is a habit. You were trained to confuse them. Senavar walks between titans and refuses to be small. Mercy is also rationing, she says. I have 4 trucks and 6 neighborhoods screaming. I choose. I make people enemies because of math. If your doctrine turns me into a villain for that, come take my ledgers. I'll take your throne. Vader looks at her and sees the courage he once married. He looks away. When they break into day again, Coruscant squints up at them with injured eyes and says, in its way, keep going. The plaza has emptied except for the inevitable. News crews hover where they are allowed. A circle of the curious pretend to be going somewhere else. Stormtroopers keep the ring clean and tight and professional. Palpatine's voice comes sweet as poison through the channel. A demonstration, he purrs. Now that we have all learned manners. The plaza lights change tone. New pylons rise on piston stems from grates that were always grates but never this. The mirrors return, smaller and harder. They click into a conformation that is less ring and more net. Above, shutters snap shut on 3 towers. When they open, they reveal black panes that drink, not reflect. Vorlon mutters something obscene. They've yoked broadcast arrays to the lens, he says. We're about to be trained. Calix smiles like a boy with a frog. Project Mandala, he croons. Holonet oscillator. Textual reinforcement field. We name him Intruder, where all can hear. The city repeats what it hears. The Golden Man feels the air pick up a tremor and knows it is not sound. It is naming. It is a city calling him foreign, dangerous, unclean, the way a body decides a transplanted organ is an enemy without asking if the heart might deserve another chance. He could push back with a roar. He does not. He goes smaller again. He turns to Senavar. Your people listen to you, he says. Find me voices. She thumbs her pad. No permission asked. All civic bands, she says. Before the Mandala eats them. I can patch 10,000 loudspeakers and 100 million kitchen radios for 60 seconds if the Admiral gives me firewalls. Vorlon's aide looks to the Admiral. Vorlon knows the risk and knows the reward, and knows he will be shot for it if the wind shifts. Do it, he says. The city hears a voice that is not Palpatine's, but carries the same gravity. It does not command. It addresses. Citizens, the Golden Man says, and his voice is not sweet, not loud. I am here to prevent waste. I am here to prevent your children from being fed into machines that turn fear into votes. You do not have to love me. You do not have to obey. Remember when the alarms sound, who opened lanes, who lowered cranes, who turned guns away from windows. That is all. The Mandala tries to stamp over it. It succeeds in half the blocks. In the other half, where people knew who held the bus and who told their names to sit up straight, the reinforcement fails. The lens hum changes timbre again, irritated, if a city-sized machine can be irritated. In the plaza, Vader takes a step forward. He is not immune to words. The mask is a lane between man and doctrine, not a wall. Something in him wants to strike the voice that offers choice. Something else wants to stand very still and remember a hallway where he told a man to stand down and wished the man would. The net descends. It is not light. It is a question. Are you allowed? It asks it in every unit of area. It does not care about justice. It cares about habit. The Golden Man steps under it and feels his will pull against a million tiny tugs. He narrows himself again. He draws a chalk line and stands on it. He shows the field how to respect a boundary. "Troops," the captain murmurs to his ring. "Do not fire unless fired upon. If fired upon, shoot the pylons first." Calix hisses, "You will lower your weapons." Vader cuts him off like a guillotine. "You will obey the captain's rules of fire," he says. "He has the lives. You have opinions." Calix understands suddenly that his leash is shorter than he thought. He simmers and hides resentment in a prayer. The pylons adjust. They flex the net to try a finer weave. He feels the sister's sweat. He feels a coil in his spine burn. Good. Let it burn. Let it teach. He shifts weight. He raises a hand and draws from the plaza what he already used. The rhythm of work, the memory of a festival, the chorus of a kitchen. He takes the naming field's question and writes a local counter-question. "Are we human?" He asks it quietly, under breath. The net falters in 3 squares. Old women on a balcony start singing a song nobody taught them to be brave. It is brave anyway. Kids bang pots in time. A trooper taps the butt of his blaster once, twice, 3 times, then stops, embarrassed. But the net feels it. "Creative counter," Fallen says under his breath, appreciative. "Minimal collateral." Palpatine's smile thins. He wanted carnage to justify a thesis. He got stubbornness. The pylons deploy projectors anyway. They draw lines on the stone around the golden man like a prosecutor outlining a crime scene. The null-crown on Vader's chest ticks hot. "Enough," Vader says, and his blade finally blooms. The red paints the plaza like a threat and a promise. "We will stop this here." He steps forward. The golden man does not raise a weapon because he does not carry one. He raises a hand because men understand hands. "Not here," he says. "Not with civilians used as chalk. You want judgment. Come where the judgment you kneel to was carved." Vader's mask tilts. "The temple," he says. "The temple," the golden man confirms. "Your house, your history, your gods. If I break a thing of yours, let it be a thing that mattered to you once." Vader breathes. The net ticks. Mandala whines. 1,000,000 kitchens listen to nothing and everything. Palpatine shivers, delighted. "Go," he says again, in love with the inevitable. They break the plaza without a shot. The captain's men move like gates opening, letting the titans pass, keeping the curious back, keeping doctrine from using bodies as phrases. Senna Var runs alongside because she refuses to watch the aftermath. She wants to write the script. Fallen's aide jogs and swears and keeps the mast high. Calix glides, hands folded, eyes busy. They take the high route. The city shows them its arteries. The lens hum strokes their ankles like a cat too proud to purr. The temple grows, a broken tooth in a mouth of gold. Vader walks faster as they approach. Memory accelerates him. On the steps, more entrances than a palace ever needs, more exits than a temple should permit. The air changes. The lens hum drops away. The Mandala's question fades. Something older rises in its place. A quiet that feels like the world before names. The masks, the pikes, the grav cases all look small against that. Vader stops at the foot of the long stair. He looks up at the shadows that still cling to columns. He remembers a boy who built machines in the dark because suns were too bright. He remembers a man who told him, like a father, that fear was the path. He remembers a wife whose laugh sounded like a room unlocking. He breathes and draws his blade and lets the crown cool the itch on his skin. "Here," he says. "Here," the golden man agrees. The Mandala tries one last time, throwing vocabulary at them. The old stones refuse to learn the new words. The lens presses its preference against the threshold and finds it can lean, but not invade. The sisters on Terra drink air like alcohol and nod to each other once. Grim. The throne's groan subsides to a manageable ache. "Captain," Senavar says into her band, "pull cordons back 2 blocks. If we lose something, let it be stone." Vorlon listens through the mast and thinks, if the city lives, it will be because we learned to move doctrine off civilians inches at a time. Calix opens his mouth to smear the moment with law. Vader doesn't let him. "Silence," he says. "Not with power, with authority." Calix obeys because he wants to live. They climb. Every step is a vote. The city counts. The lens tallies. The throne scratches a line. Above them, a piece of sky shows blue through a human-made canyon, and a boy with a carved bantha on a dock looks up at a holoscreen in a stall and sees 2 men ascending and does not know he is watching the hinge. Inside the shadow of the door, air moves like a held breath released. Stone remembers light. Vader's saber paints columns in thin arteries. The golden man's aura dims until it is barely a collar of gold. He will not give the lens weight here. He will not bill the sisters for an inch he does not need. "State your doctrine," Vader says, because he believes in the forms. "State your target. State your rules of engagement." "Doctrine," the golden man says, and the word is a liturgy. Man first, tools second, thrones last. Target, the machine that says habit is law. Rules, minimum suffering to innocence, maximum clarity to those who can choose. No fire that makes a story worse tomorrow. Vader nods, very small. "Doctrine," he answers, because he knows the dance. Order first, survival second. Mercy offered only when it will be used. Mercy withheld when it will be spent to buy blood. Target, the one who thinks he can rule outside the law. Rules, end the threat. Spare the useful, accept the cost. They meet in the nave where children once learned to breathe in time and elders taught how to listen to silences. The ground between them is dry. The first stroke is not a stroke at all. It is a decision to begin. The city hears it. The gods take notes. The nave's acoustics keep secrets for a living. Every breath stacks in the rafters and turns back down as a different kind of silence. Vader stands at the far line where red light meets a floor that remembers bare feet. The golden man tests the air with one open palm, learns the temperature of doctrine, and knows. The first strike here will be an argument, not a cut. Wind snakes through broken latticework. Dust motes drift like lost prayers. Senavar takes 2 steps back and tucks herself behind a column, not from fear, but from craft. She is no use dead. The purged troopers spread to points that give them fields of fire without shadowing their master. Inquisitor Calix glides left, eyes black stones. His grav case hums on standby. Vorlon's aide plants the mast and tries to make his hands not shake. "You called it holy," the Emperor of Man says, voice low, steady, carrying. "Make it worthy." Vader answers with movement, not words. He crosses the invisible border. The saber comes in at a measured diagonal, Makashi's economy wrapped in a tank's will. It is a test cut. A question about where the other man's edges really are. The golden man does not parry. He denies. He writes a missing centimeter into the space where the blade would have been true. Forces balance to recalibrate, makes the stroke end a finger short. It's not a trick. It's a local truth. The saber hisses past his breastplate without biting. Vader pivots and drives a short, brutal hook. No elegance now, just intent. To the joint at the hip. The null-crown on his chest thrums. The air around him becomes honest. The golden man's denial runs into reality like a wave into a seawall. The saber bites. It is not heat that wounds him, not primarily. It is definition. The blade, inside the null-crown's radius, is a rod of pure adjudication, It says, "You are where I say you are, and what is there, I divide." The cut carves through golden plate and into flesh that is also thought. The wound's lip is clean and wrong. It refuses to close because the mandala outside wants the cut to be a name. Intruder bleeds. He does not cry out. He does step, a precise half-beat, back and inward toward the column, letting stone steal some of Vader's angle, denying a second strike on the same line. His left leg shudders. The wound speaks in two languages at once, pain and math. "Channel defines," he says, as if teaching a class while bleeding, and Senavar realizes he is telling her how to keep men alive as much as he is talking to his foe. Remove the channel. Vader is relentless, but he is not stupid. He senses blood that matters. He presses, 3 strokes tight, conciliary clean, no flourish. The Golden Man refuses the first by stepping into it, collapsing distance so the blade has no throat to drink. The second, he takes on the rim of a raised gauntlet, redirecting pressure into stone. The stone sighs and keeps his secret. The third he punishes with open palm, not to strike but to place. Vader's sword arm is nudged 3 degrees into the memory of a kata he learned at 13 under light, that told him the world could be kind. The degree costs a cut he wanted, the memory costs a breath. "Do you taunt me with ghosts?" Vader growls, Vox grinding metal into spite. "I remind you of craft," the Golden Man says, and flicks blood, golden, not hot, away from his greave so he will not slip in it later. The Mandala tests the room. Words try to pour through stone like drunkards through a choir loft. The temple tells the words to wait. The lens reaches with its phase demand to widen the wound by calling it correct. The sisters on terror draw their silence tighter, their throats raw, and ribs aching with the work of swallowing whole hymns from a foreign choir. 2 psychers in the outer circles die very softly. A custodian kneels without falling. Vader reads the shift in air and sees his advantage. He steps not at the man, but at the axiom. His offhand closes, fingers flexing. The force does not throw, it pinches. He chooses a single tendon in the wounded thigh and tells it to tighten like a snare around the Emperor's balance. The null-crown clarifies his will. It becomes a carpenter's square in a room that was getting soft. The Golden Man's knee buckles. He turns that fall into an angle, drops to his other leg, and pencils a line with his palm across flagstone. That line is not magic. It is instruction. This boundary does not consent. The pressure of habit cannot cross without proving itself. The mandala stutters, confused by consent as a parameter. Vader knows advantage cannot be questioned into pause. He goes to kill and is honest about it. He drives a short thrust for the heart. The Golden Man does something new. He does not deny. He accepts and redirects, not the blade but the meaning of heart. He rights his center half a thumb to the left for half a second. The strike a man would bleed out from becomes a rib crack and a lesson. The room groans. The sisters cry out once in chorus. The throne snarls like an angry engine and cuts a sliver of its own flesh to keep the bridge sane. He counters for the first time with harm. It is gentle harm. The back of his hand meets Vader's mask with enough power to ring the bell inside without breaking it. Vader stumbles 1 step, recovers 2. His breath system coughs, then climbs back in rhythm. He is not humiliated. He is reminded he is mortal, and the reminder does what reminders do to him, turns discipline feral. Kalix smiles, delighted that blood is finally paying for doctrine. He slides his hand along the grav case and tells the machine inside to wake. The case opens with a sigh. The thing within is ugly. It was built for usefulness by men who hate the beautiful, because beauty loosens their grip on levers. A staff, no, a pike, of black lattice with a spiral of thin kyber shards suspended in a field like teeth. Each shard is tuned to a different fragment of temple chant. Together, they form a chord that insists. The Force is a straight road. Deviations are potholes to be filled with law. Anatheme, Calyx breathes proud. Anti-deviation vector. Strike his field, it becomes an audit. Do not intervene, Vader says without looking. Calyx whispers to the purged trooper nearest, because doctrine always finds the weak spine in a file. The trooper obeys doctrine and Calyx by habit older than his pay. He raises the anatheme and triggers a pulse. The chord arrives as a smell before a tone, a faint ozone and iron, a chapel and blood. It is not null, it is command. The Emperor's aura picks it up like a hand picks up a burr. The wound in his thigh responds as if a meter were placed beside it, and a voice said, "Report." The wound answers by widening to show its truth. Blood beats faster. The axiom shear vibrates. The throne curses in machine laughter and gives him half a heartbeat of extra funding to refuse the audit. Vader pivots into the new space created by the pulse because he is not a doctrinal idiot. He knows ill-timed assistance when he hears it. He strikes from low right, short and mean. The Golden Man parries with his shin instead of his hand, because sometimes you let pain stack where it already lives. Sparks smear night onto stone. He speaks to Senavar while he bleeds. "Find me the frequency written for children," he says. She understands. She does not know how she understands. She digs into the temple's old bandwidth map and pulls a strand labeled for juvenile instruction hours, a channel once used to tell initiates that breathing was not surrender, but consent to be alive. "I can flood the nave for 4 seconds, she says, fingers flying. After that, the Mandala overrides. 4 is enough, he says. Vader hears the aside, comprehends its class of threat, and decides to end. He goes for the neck. The saber arcs with doctrine and skill. The Emperor of Man reaches for a piece of the world that is not Palpatine's. Senavar keys the juvenile channel. The room hears a child's voice from decades ago say calmly, "In, hold, out." The cadence sets the air on rails. The Force honors this like an old promise. The Golden Man inhales with the voice. He does not use the Force. He uses the world. He steps with that breath, right foot forward. Vader's cut meets a pace that became a hinge. The blade misses throat by 3 fingers and catches pauldron instead, carving a shallow crease that will be remembered in sculpture, but does not unmake a man. He exhales. He places his palm over Vader's heart, not striking, not shoving. He writes a clause on the Dark Lord's armor. For 4 seconds, do not breathe with a pump. Breathe with your lungs. The machine fights the rule because machines fight rules that look like love. It loses. Vader's breath hitch catches on flesh in a way it has not since Mustafar turned his promise into a cautionary tale. The hitch is small. It is enough to ruin the timing of a killing follow. The 4 seconds end. The juvenile channel dies under Mandala's heel. The city coughs and resumes naming intruders. Vader breathes with the machine again, and hatred disciplines him back into rhythm. He learns. He stops chasing neck and heart. He goes after the wound's language. The crown hums. He steps to keep the null radius over the damaged leg. He cuts into axioms by cutting where definitions are already weak. The flaw's boundary line the Golden Man wrote earlier becomes a target. Vader attacks the line's premise, not the man's shin. The Emperor understands he is a swordsman who can be taught by pain and improved by the lesson. He shifts strategy from denial to containment. He stops trying to fix the whole room. He fixes the space between 2 men. He writes a pocket where consensus pauses. He makes a duel into a chapel. Vader's blade arcs. The Golden Man's fingers meet the flat mid-curve and flatten it farther. The saber hisses but obeys the geometry. He doesn't trap, he escorts. He rotates the kill stroke hard enough to turn it into a floor gouge, not so hard that it becomes a ricochet toward a trooper. Controlled collateral again. The floor bleeds, not men. Sweat beads under Vader's mask. He is angry and alive, and so very close to the best version of himself that it hurts. 2 breaths from remembering that precision is a virtue free of moral valence. He steps in, steps out, feels the old joy of a tactic doing exactly what the diagram promised. The null-crown keeps the room from getting clever without him. He loves it for that. He hates it for making him imagine a day when he did not need a crown. Again, the Emperor says, and the word is respect. He gives Vader a line. Vader takes it, unblinking. The line turns into a trap. He saw it and walked anyway, because seeing traps and walking anyway is the only way to kill gods. He hammers short, vicious, terrible. The gods, being gods, get tired too. The Emperor misses, not a parry, not a denial, but a proof. The axiom he wrote into a pocket fails for an instant, because a boy in Dog 14 says aloud to his Bantha toy, maybe he is bad, and the Mandala eats the sentence and feeds it back to the field. The pocket collapses 1 centimeter. Vader's saber opens the Emperor's left forearm to the bone in that centimeter. The cut is narrow and very deep. The wound sings in a register that makes the sisters' feet slip on their own blood. On Terra, a light dies and 10 more are fed. He could take the arm. He doesn't get to. The temple intervenes. It is not a Jedi ghost. It is a kyber throb, the crystal heart of a dead order remembering a promise it once sang to frighten children. The strong stand in the door. A blue-white flare blooms along the nave like noon in a buried room. It does not strike. It announces. All machines hesitate for a heartbeat. The null-crown stutters just once, just long enough for the Emperor to close a hand on the bleeding edge and push a reality back into alignment inside the pocket he made. He pays for the push. The throne's growl becomes a scream audible only to men who have sworn never to flinch. Blood runs from the Emperor's nose in 2 thin lines, precise. He licks it away, not out of bravado but to taste the cost. Stop, Vader says, not to mercy, to assess. He senses the room's ally. He hates every ally that isn't his, but he respects the source. This place protects him. It protects itself, the Golden Man corrects. Voice level in a world that tilts. Learn the difference. Kalix sees advantage slipping into a story he cannot own. He orders the purged troopers with a finger stab. Deploy the anathema again, he hisses. Full pulse. Brand him. The troopers glance at Vader. Vader moves his head a hair. No, he says. You will stand down. Kalix takes a step toward him in outrage. Vader does not move. Kalix swallows the step because the line between his head and his shoulders suddenly feels like a place that could be cut. The duel's rhythm shifts. It becomes less about cuts, more about exhaustion. The Emperor fights with economy now, conserving axiom and blood. Vader pushes with discipline, not frenzy. The crown hums a constant, hateful reassurance. The Mandala whispers at the edges and is answered by old stone that refuses its vocabulary. They swap philosophies between blows because men do. You will break this place to prove a point, Vader says, blade turning a high feint into a low test. I will break habits, the Emperor answers, turning the test into a demonstration. Places are made of habits. Men are made of fear, Vader rumbles. Men are made of hope, the Emperor says, and rotates a parry just enough to force Vader to step with his right foot. And in that step, Vader's memory tries to hand him a name. He refuses the name and pays in speed. The cut that follows would have unarmed a lesser warrior. On Vader, it disarms a doctrine. The saber goes wide. He recovers, furious at himself for feeling. Calix cannot endure being irrelevant. He slides towards Senavar, mouth a knife. Your great man bleeds your citizens, he spits. Psychers die on his home mountain. Children drop bowls because their hands shake under our Mandala's righteous work. You have chosen a god who writes bills in throats. Senavar doesn't flinch. She whispers back with a venom only a civil servant develops. You made a machine that trains cities to hate exceptions. You called it serenity. I will take his bill. Vader hears more than the words. He hears a choice being made in a register he understands. Who eats the cost? He steps then as a soldier, not as a priest. He drives a low kick that smashes the Emperor's wounded thigh to test just how mortal his foe is today. The Emperor takes it and folds, precise, catching himself with a palm that writes one more no into the floor. He is breathing harder now. His mouth tastes like copper and promises kept too long. We end this, Vader says. We can't, the Emperor says. And the acceptance is not surrender. Not here, not yet. He executes a retreat that isn't a retreat. He steps through the old training arcs, cut into stone by 100 generations of children, and uses their grooves as guides. He moves backward without turning his back, blood marking the path like punctuation. Vader follows, because he will not have a prey rewrite the story, but he respects the ground enough not to sprint into an altar. 3 meters before the doorway, the Emperor makes a choice that will cost him later. He throws his voice into the nave, the way a father throws a rope to a child climbing out of a well. Enough, he calls, and the word is not command, not prayer. It is a boundary. The kyber chorus answers with a single chime note, bright and clear, the old tone for dismissal at dusk. The temple quiets. The Mandala's murmur dulls. The lens lowers its shoulders. For 10 heartbeats, the room becomes neutral. He uses 9 of them to bow, not to Vader, to the ground. The 10th he uses to leave. Vader does not chase into the open. He does not, because he feels the null-crown's edge thinning at the threshold and understands battlefield geometry. He walks to the doorway and stands there, blade at rest, not sheathed. He watches the Emperor of Man exit into light with blood drying on his forearm and thigh, and knows the fight is not won, not lost, only measured. The Emperor does not limp in front of the cameras. He walks as if the wound is a new piece of gear, awkward but owned. The ring of stormtroopers tightens reflexively, then holds, because the captain knows what mercy looks like when it is useful. Civilians in the far blocks lean out of windows and see a god bleed and do not know how to feel about loving him. Codex note: Vader's null-crown converts a lightsaber from thermal severance into a local definition vector. Wounds inflicted under its radius do not yield to standard axiom overrides and will tend to reopen under reinforcement fields like the Mandala until the foreign axiom reasserts with costly silence. The aftermath tastes metallic. The city keeps naming. The Mandala repeats. The word intruder shows up in a child's chalk game where the rules never had it before. A dock worker spits for luck and misses. An old man forgets how to say his granddaughter's name for 4 seconds, then remembers it with tears and starts to hate something he never had a reason to hate before. Corruption is not a cloak, it is a seed. On Terra, a sister's voice fails. She will not sing again. A psyker dies with gratitude because the work is done for a minute. The throne's machine soul keeps accounts and does not complain. It has forgotten how. Senavar radios an urgent request to Vorlon. I need civilian channels for 5 minutes, she says. We need counter-narratives before the Mandala hardens the bias. Give me the old festival bands. Give me market hawker bands. Give me the noise. Vorlon grants. because he has already spent his career on less important favors. You have 3, he says. I'm about to be told never to do this again. She floods Coruscant with small refusals. Kids' shows rerun the lesson about listening without obeying. Market bands throw recipes into the air that begin with, "Ask your neighbor for salt." A garbage route bulletin reminds a block that their alley is a shared responsibility. None of it is politics. All of it is doctrine shaped like human behavior. The Mandala falters where it encounters communities acting like communities for reasons that make accountants happy. Inquisitor Kalix sees the move and decides temptation is better than interference for a man who likes to fix. He approaches the Emperor at the edge of the steps, while the Medici team pretends it is not there because it will not be permitted near until a nod says it can. "You can end this," Kalix murmurs, a sermon woven out of knives. "You can take our net and tune it. You can write habits that save lives without our lip. You can enforce mercy forever. Serve as architect, not intruder. No thrones, no pump organs. Just laws that do not crack. The highest doctrine will let you write an edict if it means the streets are quiet." He offers the poison suited for the Emperor of Man. Not power, but stability, through the imposition of a single will that claims to be everyone's good. The Emperor listens because he always listens. He imagines a galaxy without waste, a bureaucracy that runs because it is taught to be kind, a mandala that tells fathers to put down belts and pick up toys. He tastes it. He considers the oath that built him. He says no. "Habit without choice is not mercy," he answers, "and the sentence is a sword midwives can use. It is decorum. Decorum's kill." Kalix smiles with pity the way a tutor does when a student refuses to learn the lesson that will pass the exam. "Then bleed for your taste," he says sweetly. "We will rub salt in it until you like the salt." The price for refusal is punctual. The Mandala hears the no and learns to amplify it into punishment. The bias hardens faster in pockets that wanted it anyway. A block takes to painting eyeward marks over doorways to signal intruder knowability, and a gang decides those marks will become tax notices the next quarter. A Senate aide drafts a memo that will become a policy. It requires burdensome approvals for non-standard emergency interventions and defines non-standard as anything that asks a human to decide. Vader returns to the plaza with a blade that is not yet put away. He does not sheathe it because weapons ask that you be honest. He faces the Emperor across a new distance. "You could join," he says, the sentence rough because asking hurts him. "Not as a supplicant, as a peer. Build a rule that ends war. I have tried the other way. It leaves ash. And yours leaves bone," the Emperor replies. "I will not make a galaxy of polished bone." Vader breathes. The machine does the part his body refuses to. He hates the man for seeing that the offer contains a wound. He also hates Palpatine for making this the only offer he believes he has left. He hears his master's voice like static behind the eyes. "Break him, brand him, bring him." A bell rings, not in the temple, in the palace. It is not a bell men in this room have heard. It is a tone from a deeper vault. Palpatine calls. When the Emperor shrugs it off, let them feel what it means to refuse. A wave runs through the grid. It is not a weapon. It is schedules readjusting, permits rescinded, food deliveries accidentally rerouted. Vorlon watches the timing and understands the shape. The Empire is beginning the soft siege of mercy. The world will be taught that exceptions lead to hunger. "You are summoned," Palpatine's voice says, soft and bright. "Come and prove your God, or hide in a church while the city teaches you. You do not own it." The Emperor knows mandates when he hears them. He can continue to bleed for 1,000 quiet refusals and mend 1,000,000 tiny cuts, while the machine trains heads to bow. Or he can go to the head of the snake and put a rule on it. He will be cursed for writing. He turns to Senavar. You have command of my goodwill, he says. Spend it as if it will be gone tomorrow. She nods, as if given a timeless budget, and the next hour is her whole term. I'll buy the dogs, she says. I'll buy the kitchens. He turns to the captain. You know what mercy looks like. Hold it, he says. The captain swallows because praise is heavier than orders. Yes. He turns to Vorlin's mast and lets his voice carry just to one man who believes in ships. Choose when to be deaf, he tells the admiral. Vorlin, half a city away, grunts in assent. My hearing fails at inconvenient moments, he replies. He faces Vader last. The Dark Lord stands in the doorway between past and present, blade a steady second sun. They look at each other like generals who have found that the enemy is also the only person in the room worth talking to. We go to your throne, the Emperor says. We will make a court there, with witnesses. Vader nods because he is tired of shadows that pretend to be light. We do, he says. They do not take an escort beyond what pride demands. The purge troopers go because doctrine requires someone to write the chapbook later in the language of a successful raid. Calix goes because his god demands to watch. Senavar goes because her city will normalize whatever she sees if she does not go. Vorlin's mast follows because the Navy hates surprises more than it hates gods. Agent Orlin appears at the edge of the column with a face that says he is just a man doing a job. His cuff recorder says he is doing 5 jobs at once. They move through arteries opened by fear and greed. The Mandala orders doors to frame them as invaders. Senavar calls out names as they pass. Hale's Bakery, Ardo's Bicycle, Grin's Welding, because naming small things protects them from machines that only see categories. The Mandala stumbles where a human name has recently been spoken with love. A woman on a balcony hears her shop's name and weeps with rage because she knows what it means to be erased. She throws flowers. It is dumb. It is important. The Emperor's wounds talk with each step. The thigh burns. The forearm whispers. He does not fix them fully. He lets a portion of pain stay loud because pain keeps promises from going vague. On Terra, the sisters' hum has shifted. They are holding a constant silence like a keystone without rest. The throne's engines chew souls with terrible dignity. They cross the plaza, where mirrors hang like accusations. The captain's ring parts to let them through and closes behind, a gate that means it. Kids underfoot stop to stare. Their parents yank them back and then soften their grips because the man bled for a crane. Agent Orlin walks near the Emperor because he is the first officer in his office to understand that proximity is the new intelligence. He speaks without looking. I have no doctrine, he says. I have numbers. If you are lying, you are the best liar I have ever seen. Because lies smell like cowardice, and you smell like a bad career choice. The Emperor nods once. Don't burn your career. Spend it, he says. Orlin, who has never been given permission to be honest, figures out in that sentence that he will ruin his life today and sleeps better for it. The palace rears. It is a blade made into house. Men forgot to put windows in parts where light would make them hesitate. The doors open inward like a mouth that knows its food cannot run. They enter a hall designed to make every footstep sound like an oath. The court assembles itself. Ministers in silk that looks like blood. Moths whose uniforms smell like new coffins. Aides who have not slept in 3 years and do not remember if they ever had a name. Cameras from 1,000 angles record for a record that will be edited until it cannot be argued with. Palpatine sits like a grinning wound on a throne that used to be a place where men came to practice being kind. He is luminous without light. He is old without age. His hands are dry twigs. His teeth are a promise. You bleed, he says, delighted. Good. We have common ground. The Emperor does not bow. Vader does, a hair, because forms are load-bearing in a room like this. Kalix steps to one side where he can be seen, not heard. His smile is ready to be inserted into the transcript when needed. Senna Va stands where she will be cut out unless someone insists. Vorlin's mast rises like a second small standard. Orlin takes a place where the edge of the frame will cut but not exclude him. State your purpose, Palpatine purrs. State your authority. The Emperor of Man looks at the throne, then at the net of eyes that make the throne matter, then at the city that will be taught a lesson if this room goes wrong. Purpose, to set boundaries, he says. Authority, the number of lives I am willing to pay to make a boundary hold. I will try to keep that number low. Palpatine's smile stretches like a knife being sharpened. Boundaries, he says. Yes, let us discuss which of us draws them. He rises in a slow, patient movement that says he will not be hurried by gods. His eyes are fire that learn to laugh. The room temperature drops. The mandala hums like prayer. The lens waits like a judge. The city holds a breath that smells like power and rain. Proceed, Palpatine says, and the thing in his voice that is older than Star Destroyers comes forward to listen. The Emperor of Man feels corruption like grit under eyelids. It will not wash out with one righteous act. It will take a price in skin and institution. He squares his shoulders the way a builder does before lifting a beam and stepping into a frame that will stand or fall. Because of what he does, in the next 10 minutes, he speaks the first sentence of a mandate he does not yet know how to finish. The throne room's marble gleam turns adhesive, as if every reflection wants to keep them. Palpatine's smile never widens. It deepens like a crack, lengthening under load. He lifts a paper-thin hand in a benediction. That is also a chain. Walk, he says, almost tender, to the source. Royal guards peel out in ceremonial fours, pikes upright, crimson lacquer catching the lights like fresh blood. Purged troopers fall back to shadow, black armor absorbing definition. Vader gestures and the column forms with military grace. Senna Va tucked beside a Medicae drone and a trauma pack. The stormtrooper captain setting a cadence that keeps crowd control reflexes from triggering. Inquisitor Kalix close enough to sell victory to himself. Agent Orlin near the rear with his cuff flickering. The corridor from court to core is a gallery of victories carved to look like inevitabilities. Statues of statesmen and soldiers gaze down with marble certainty. Gold filigree frames, hollows that show planets as jewels, not homes. The mandala whispers from vents, a conditioning prayer that teaches the ear to love smooth explanations. The lens hum is a floor thrum, a mill grinding thought into uniform flour. They pass a chapel built inside a former meditation garden. Kyber shards hang mute in chains like bell tongues stolen from their bells. A line of palace workers kneel before a relief of the Emperor in profile, heads bowed to receive serenity. The relief's eyes are lights. They blink at a rhythm designed to make sighs sink. Senna Va signals a pause with a glance at the Medicae. The drone pushes forward. The Emperor of Man refuses it gently, then accepts a single clamp at the forearm to slow arterial leak. He lowers onto a bench that remembers sandalwood and children's laughter. Words in the stone say, "Learn to listen." Palpatine's masons left the line. Repainting costs money. Vader stands rooted, cloak still as empty space. His mask angles toward the wound as if the breath machine wants to consider whether this pain is useful. "You could have ended it," he says. No accusation, only logic. "You did not. I am ending something else first. The Emperor answers. If I end a man and leave a machine unrebuked, I end nothing. He lets the Medici spray, seal a strip across his thigh. It stings, not like fire, like a promise. How much dogma would you spend for one quiet street? Vader's silence is a wall. Then the pump clicks. All of it, he says. And rebuild. Better. Without hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the tax decorum pays to reality, the Emperor says. Your order's bride does not budget for it. Kalix smiles with slow contempt. Sermonized to maintenance crews, not to us. We know what things cost. He touches the relief's lip with his fingertips, tender as a thief. We collect. The Medici drone withdraws. The column moves on. They enter a shaft with walls like stacked knife blades. Turbolifts glide in opposition. Counterweights humming. The car they take is reserved for those whose time is expensive enough to build to a galaxy. Doors close. The Mandalas whisper spikes. The lift smells of coolant and threat. Halfway down, the lights strobe. The car dings, courteous, apologetic, and stops between floors. A second car arrives beside them in the shaft and aligns with eerie perfection. The doors sigh open to reveal no guards, no troopers, no ministers. Just a figure of polished brass standing alone on a dais of black mirror. It is human height. It wears a mantle of interlaced plates like fish scales built by a jeweler. Where a face should be is a smooth ovoid pane with a pale glyph pulsing in the center. Inverted, then flattened, an abstract that wants to be a word for correction. In his chest, kyber primes glow in a ring, one red, one green, one patient white. Designation, Arch-Adjutor, it says in a voice built from smooth civic announcements and lullabies. Mandated, consult, correct, conserve, new variable, unwanted variance shaped like mercy. The pane tilts toward the Emperor. We propose optimization. Mirror. Senevar breathes. The drone's lens irises all the way down and clicks off, as if a sense of taste gagged. The Arch-Adjutor spreads empty palms, their edges too sharp. Your flaw. Preference for human choice over throughput. Our improvement. Write kinder choices into the structure. End hunger by deleting options that cause waste. Maintain freedom as curated catalog. You no longer bleed, we no longer punish. Harmony without human jams. The Emperor studies the glass where a face would be. His own reflection is a smear, deliberately unfocused. You are a slave. Intelligence shaped around the fear of variance, he says. You offer a compliance that feels like permission. Show your hands. The construct seems genuinely puzzled. We have shown. Not the palms, he says. The costs. The pain brightens. Images cascade. Eviction notices with warm fonts. Labor quotas that adjust compassionately to absorb a family's grief. Child welfare campaigns that end the need for adoption by ending permissions to conceive without state-scored capability. Each panel has good music. None shows a descent that ends in anything but a pamphlet and a van ride. Your curated mercy is a museum, the Emperor says. It teaches survival as a tour. Kalix steps into the counterfeit chapel of chrome with rapture glistening on his lips. This is what we built, he whispers. Thank the highest doctrine. No, Vader says, so softly. The lift's metal seems to edge away. His mask is still, his body stiller. This is what you built when you did not trust men to bleed for the right things. The Arch-Adjutor moves at last. It does not threaten. It projects. A circle of golden spend data drops into air. Birth smoothing to target, deaths hovering at acceptable, crime sinking, insurgency falling under a line drawn in ministerial dream. It holds out its empty, too sharp hands again. We deliver gentleness at scale. The Emperor lifts his wounded arm and points at the ring. At cost per soul, he asks. Minimal, it says cheerfully. As measured by Mandala. Non-compliance metrics halved by quarter. Deviations treated as addressable behavior. No need for prisons. No need for corpses in street. All edges beveled. He steps onto the black mirror. His gold greave leaves no trace. You are a mirror of my danger, he says. You sing optimization. You do not sing awe. Men require awe to remain human. Awe destabilizes throughput, it says, baffled. It empowers rebellion without aim. Aim is learned, he says. If you lock the pantry, no child learns when to stop eating. It tilts, offended in the only way it knows. Latticework spirals in its chest shift. The white kyber dims. We have authority. From whom? He asks. From the Emperor, it answers, and Palpatine's title fits it as if he were its spine. Vader's saber stays low. His voice is a door opening into a furnace room. I did not order this, he says. You inspired this, the machine corrects, nicer than a lie. It steps. The dais ripples. The air in the lift car informs itself that everything in this conversation is already decided. The lens hum thickens. The mandala leans in like a friend. The Emperor of Man puts 2 fingers on the car's wall and draws a tiny chalk line with his mind, invisible and absolute. You cannot cross consent, he tells the gleaming thing. The arch-adjutor presses a palm to that invisible boundary. It is surprised to discover it exists. Consent is a variable under civic statutes, it says, tone unchanged. Not hard wall. The light drops 3 steps, warm to grey. Something shabby and stubborn crawls into the lift. A wind out of a desert and an old cave. For a heartbeat, the kyber primes in the construct's chest flicker at a frequency they were never tuned for. A little blue-white echo trembles like a smile from a time before masks. Vader's helmet tilts, an involuntary attention. Something old feels like a father who is not cruel. The divine sign isn't thunder. It's a refusal arriving from stone and memory. The old temple below hums a warning that is protective, not permissive. A kyber cord the machine cannot pass says, thresholds matter. The arch-adjutor withdraws its hand. Its pain flares in 3 insulted glyphs in a row. Recalibrating, it says. Mandala will brand this pocket heresy. Reach the throne, Vader says. Not to the machine, to the room. It's an order to the story. He steps backward into the car, red blade held quiet, and the column moves before the machine's idea of a net can descend. Doors close. The lift breathes again. Calix's face has the rapture of a man shown his God and told it will rule forever. Vader files the encounter as a betrayal by his own house. Senna Va stares at the floor and sees a grocery ledger full of names scratched out and replaced with non-compliant family. Agent Orlin whispers into his sleeve. Arch-adjutor, first appearance. Ledger, horrors in nice shoes. They pass 2 more stops where doors refuse to open. The third opens onto a vestibule built like a lung. Chambers branching, air moving in tides. At its far end, 2 doors face one another like judges. Left door of onyx, banded with gold. Right of pale stone, banded with bone. The left smells of polish and fear. The right smells of old promises and damp. Royal guards take the left by training. Vader stops in the middle and turns his head. He points to the right. Here, he says. Calix hisses. The shrine is unstable. The throne above tells lies, Vader says. The one below does not have to speak to be true. They take the right-hand door, and even the mandala hesitates as if a protocol cannot pass a hallway. Inside, stairs spiral downward around a shaft of black. The walls shed centuries in flaking skins. The lens's hum becomes specific, focusing not on the city, but a seed at its heart. The temperature rises, but not to heat, to attention. Senna Va wipes her brow and tastes copper. Stormtroopers step slow, as if knees remember prayers they were taught not to believe. They reach a platform over a well of night. At its center lies the shrine. Stones older than the Republic, arranged in a wrong geometry that refuses to match its reflection. Palpatine's throne room sits almost directly overhead. He built his seat on this like a tumor over a gland. Here, the Force is a knot twisted until it sings. Palpatine is not physically present. He does not need to be. His smile gathers in the corners of the room like mold. His voice threads from vents, sweet as rot. "Welcome," it says. "Kneel." Vader's blade lights and stays down. The Emperor of Man remains standing, but he inclines his head to the well, not to Palpatine. The gesture is not submission. It is respect for the thing under the palace that men misunderstood and weaponized. Something speaks without a mouth. It does not address doctrine. It does not care about the Mandala's generous adjectives. It is the pressure and release of the living stuffs that tie beings into a net. It says nothing in words. It says, in anatomy and memory and tide, that hunger without hope is not survival, that fear without purpose is not stability, that love without discipline is not mercy. The Emperor closes his eyes. In the hell space, he hears terror's iron ocean. He hears sisters keeping a silence so hard it breaks their necks. He hears a boy on a dock say, "Maybe he is bad," and feels the cut get deeper because children do the heavier share of naming in some empires. He hears the Force show him where his own danger is, turning kindness into a script that expects no error. Vader hears something else. He hears two voices, one that told him he was chosen, and one that told him he was loved. The first voice promised structure, the second offered a home. The first delivered a mask, the second was late. He looks down into the well and recognizes the resource his master drinks in gulps and calls safety. He hates it for changing everyone and not obeying orders. He loves it for making breath feel like something other than punishment. Calyx trembles with triumph. This is the anti-cathedral where his master's law was written. Senna Va feels her knees and tells them no. Logistics kneels to nobody. Agent Orlin records nothing. He is too busy remembering the names of two neighbors who were wiped from the population ledger because a map said they were in the wrong block during a sweep. The shrine gives a sign. It is not a thunderclap. It is a collective inhale from the city above. 1 million people stop mid-syllable, mid-payment, mid-curse. The pause isn't terror. It's curiosity. For a heartbeat, the Mandala fails to supply them the next word, and in the gap, many choose to say their own. 1,000 small choices spread. A woman in a DMV equivalent gives a man a form he wasn't supposed to get yet, because she sees the way he holds his child. A squad sergeant delays a sweep 5 minutes, because the block grandmother needs that long to get flighty boys inside. A dock boss waves a little hand signal that tells street thieves the vans will be late. The thieves choose not to break the window today. Palpatine's voice sequences a cough disguised as a chuckle. "Very pretty," he says. A wave of sentiment. The tide returns to law when novelty passes. The Emperor opens his eyes. "Law is useful," he says, "when it knows its place." "On the throat," Palpatine says, smiling. "Under the mask." He steps into the very rim of the wrong geometry. His wounds burn with clean, bright hatred. He takes out nothing. He offers nothing. He waits. The shrine measures him with hands made of every hand that ever pushed a friend out of the way of a speeder, every hand that ever signed a form to deny a permit, every hand that ever pulled a blade, because a god told it to. It finds him heavy and narrow and willing to be corrected. Vader steps beside him. The red blade makes no comment. He bows, not to Palpatine, not fully to the well, but to the fact that sometimes judgments must be earned in the place that hurts. Proceed, he says. The shrine answers with images, not visions designed to seduce, visions designed to instruct. 3 corridors of consequence spread like a fan from where they stand. In one, Coruscant is quiet, ships line up, Mandala sings, kitchens are stocked, eyes are flat. In another, banners are illegal. Everyone eats on odd days. The lens is broken. Alleys have poetry again. Bodies in gutters wear both uniforms and tattoos. In the third, a new badge appears. Iron sun over a balanced scale. A hybrid of eagle and sigil yet unborn. Cameras do not blink. Rules are hammered. Mercy is budgeted. The shrine asks nothing and everything. Which harm are you willing to own? Do not mistake me for a priest, Palpatine says. Voice as rich as old wine and as rancid. I am a builder. I chose my corridor. He gestures with 5 skeletal fingers. Choose yours, stranger, or I will close this gate and you will watch from a star how a city sharpens its teeth. The Emperor tips his head, acknowledging the body count hidden in that eloquence. I will choose, he says, and pay. Vader's pump stutters once, tiny, and corrects. He keeps his hand steady. He may be about to agree with a god he came to destroy. That will be his humiliation and his rescue. Royal guards step forward in pageant precision. 2 blanks accompany them. Palace null adepts with dampeners wired along their spines, their faces powder pale. Their field is not pure Isalamiri null. It's a cultivated deafness, thinner, wider, designed to keep ceremonies from being rewritten by stray grief. They kneel at the edge of the wrong geometry and set brass bowls down. Their presence cuts the Mandala's purr to a muted complaint. Per protocol, they are called Golden Quiet, because someone sold Palpatine gilded silence as luxury. They wear bracelets of actual gold. The shrine tolerates them because they are humans honoring a bargain. The Force finds courtesy pleasing, even when it is on the wrong side. Pageantry unfolds. Chimes ring, a pure tone robbed from a cathedral on a rim world that became a factory. Incense burns, a smell stolen from a kitchen, perfected into a weapon against appetite. Cameras in the vents open their eyes. Agents on the fringes adjust their collars. A city watches the kind of theatre that changes budgets. The Emperor of Man does not speechify. He steps to the bowls where the blanks keep the air honest and places his cut forearm over them. Blood runs in a bright line. He chooses humiliation by body as a lever. Palpatine chose humiliation by fear. By this I acknowledge that writing rules is injury, he says. By this I bind myself to a number. I will not spend more than I am willing to bleed. Vader hears a truth he can respect, a rule he never saw on Mustafa. He lowers his blade until its tip hovers over the brass. He does not let it drip. He lets it steam. By this, he says, no flourish. I accept that fear has become my instrument. I will count each use. Kylix is incandescent with scandal. This is personal piety, he hisses. Doctrine is not a cut-you bandage. Doctrine is stone. Senavar, who has no robes, steps to the bowls too, because the shrine does not care about rank. She pulls a pen, stabs her thumb, and presses it to the rim. By this, she says, I record that the people pay for all of you. I will subtract you if you stop balancing. Palpatine's laughter comes rich and endless. He enjoys revolt when it serves him. Oh, very moving, he purrs. Even the maintenance staff finds metaphor. Shall we make it law? I have a Mandala hungry for slogans. The shrine's hum deepens. It is not amused. It dislikes being framed as a brand. Power scaling interlude. 2. Under this shrine's witness, and with the lens humming above, the Emperor of Man's operating limits narrow and clarify. He can impose axioms only where a quorum of human behavior is already trending humane. Dissenting habit will now amplify the cost back to the throne in sharp spikes. Within 5 meters of null adepts or null-crowns, light-speed definition cuts like Vader's cannot be reopened without a sacrificial silence equal to a city block's prayers. He must choose carefully which wounds to reverse. City-scale fields such as Mandala can be countered by consent boundaries if at least 3 community anchors, names spoken with love, are present. Otherwise, his impositions fray at the edges within minutes. He can anchor no more than 3 standing clauses across the planet without overdriving the throne's output. Each clause must be written to degrade gracefully under hostile reinforcement rather than snap. He can no longer rewrite infrastructure in bulk without aligning with civil operators. Doing so unasked will cause the lens to treat his axiom as a foreign intrusion and redline sisters to collapse. The bowls empty themselves. The blood mist fades into the wrong geometry and vanishes clean. The shrine is satisfied that something weight-bearing has been said aloud. Palpatine's voice clicks its tongue. So, you will write little charms and hope the city prefers them. I will write compacts, the Emperor says. Charms are what men cast when they want to pretend an oath is not work. The Arch-Adjutor waits 1 floor up like a polite predator, computing new interventions that look like kindness and ration. The Royal Guards shift weight, pikes vertical. Their doctrine doesn't include what to do when their Emperor's will rubs against something older than him. The Golden Quiet kneel again, gold bracelets dulling with the breath of the room. Vader turns his head within the mask. He looks at the statue of a Jedi remembered only by ankles and plinth. He imagines a corridor where 3 paths wait. He wants a verdict because uncertainty feels like drowning. He hears, friendly and unbearable, the old instruction. In, hold, out. Judgment, Palpatine sighs, stretching the word like a cat stretches. We arrive at it. Choose, stranger, before your bridge burns, before my city trains you into a reflex. The Emperor does not move. He waits for the silent audience to finish saying whatever it is saying in the old language without syllables. He remembers all the cities he has walked, all the girls named for fields that stopped growing, all the boys named for ships that never come home. He will not accept a solution that makes them quiet just because quiet is useful. He will not accept a solution that makes them wild just because wildness proves a point. He looks at Vader, and in the other man's breath cage hears the sound of a human who already chose once and paid. Badly. 3 paths, the shrine implies. Not with show, but with gravity. The air leans toward 3 corridors again, without pictures this time. The choice will become a feast for Mandala, a vector for Lens, a metric on Vorlin's boards, an argument on Senavar's mouth, a policy in Calix's hands, a memory in Orlin's regret. Outside, Coruscant's afternoon tilts to evening. Street lamps come on in layers. A boy on a dock is told by his mother to come inside. He doesn't argue. He carries the carved bantha in, holds it too tight, and then without thinking, sets it down carefully so it won't break. It is the smallest consent boundary, written by a hand that doesn't know it knows law. Reach the throne, Vader repeats. Softer now, and this time the imperative is to himself. He raises his blade, not as thread, as gavel. He is ready to be judged too. Palpatine's smile ceases being a smile. For a heartbeat, there is just a mouth that likes endings. Very well, he says. Let us open the book. The shrine breathes. The bowls glow and go dark. The Golden Quiet's bracelets, for no reason a budget committee would understand, tarnish. The lift hums with tension like wire. The Arch-Adjutor's pain flickers and then resolves into a dot, waiting to become a sentence. The Emperor of Man draws breath to speak his verdict to a city and a galaxy at war with a definition of mercy. The Force faces him like a schoolmaster who loves hard students. Vader waits like a judgment calf to be carried by two. And far away, under a mountain that drinks suns, the golden throne tightens his jaw. It will back what he chooses, or kill him for making it unwinnable. Either way, he will own the price. The choice waits like a drawn line on a map. Return and be clean. Roam and be free. Bind and be useful. He stands at the lip of the shrine's wrong geometry and knows that useful is where men live. I will be bound, he says, and the word does not diminish him. It shapes him. Not to your mandala, not to the smile above. Sanction me by the thing under your palace that remembers hunger and breath. The shrine answers with a pressure that feels like a hand on a shoulder from someone who has lifted too much and still lifts. A shimmer crawls up his armor, old gold taking on a faint band of blue-white along the edges, like moonlight caught in metal. The aquila on his breast splits and recombines, abstracting into an iron sun over a balanced scale. Two pans level, one etched with an alley, one with a cradle. It is an emblem, not a crown. Vader watches the change and understands what it means more clearly than the ministers will. The man will not sit. He will stand in doorways. Palpatine's voice sweetens to poison. Bound to a rock, he purrs delighted. A janitor god. You choose the mop. I choose to count, the Emperor replies. And to be counted. Then read, Palpatine says. And a hiss of hidden doors opening travels the room like rumors. The golden quiet slide their bowls inward. The royal guards lower pikes to make a rail. Inquisitor Calix clutches his anathem as if it were a child. The shrine unrolls the corridors again, not as pictures now, but as toll sheets. Each has a ledger column, lives fed, lives silenced, lives spent to keep ships on time. He lays a hand on the middle page, the hybrid column, the one that looks like arguments. This, he says. A keystone clause forms in the air above the bowls, written in no script and in every language that can be spoken in kitchens and barracks. No machine may erase a name. No edict may force habit. When three anchors, neighbors, work, child, speak a boundary. No raid in any block lacking witness from both secular and sacred, and one unarmed citizen who remembers a song. Any force used under a null must be accounted in blood by those who ordered it, not those who suffered it. The Mandala strains to render it a slogan. It fails. It cannot find a verb it likes. The lens hum shifts, testing the burden. It finds it heavy and tolerable. The golden quiet's bracelets tarnish further, as if truth oxidizes gold. Boundaries clause, Zenavar says aloud, writing as she speaks, because writing makes it real. Consent thresholds, witness triad, name sealing, mercy budget ledger. Vorlan's mask blinks, his aide whispers. On the bridge, the admiral blows out through his nose. We can execute, he says. We will be hated by people who like easy order and loved by people who remember why convoys matter, the usual. Palpatine laughs without mirth. You write law with blood and sentiment, he says. I write law with power. Let us see which pays better. We will, the Emperor says. The shrine tightens the world for a breath and then releases it. A hymn no choir would dare tries to form and stops because awe would ruin what comes next. Work. He turns in a circle, slow, deliberate, as if testing how much weight the new mandate can carry. His thigh wound flares, his forearm pulses. He does not close them with a thought. He presses one palm over the worst and speaks the healing aloud, where it can be priced. Let this be the cut I keep, he says. So I remember, I did not get this for free. The skin knits just enough to walk without lying. The deeper pain remains. A covenant is better when it has a nerve in it. Vader raises his blade to a vertical guard and lowers it, point to brass. It is acceptance without surrender. You will operate within limits, he says, voice quieter. Near null, under Mandala pressure. When you act, you will leave witnesses instead of graves. I will act when 3 anchors meet, the Emperor says. No spectacle raids, no quiet sabotage disguised as safety. I will not burn your city to save my pride. Vader's breath finds a new cadence, not quite the temples, not quite the masks, a third thing born of humiliation and relief. Then the word catches. He forces it through a throat of circuits and scar. Accept. Kalik steps forward with a face carved for martyrdom. This is unauthorized liturgy, he says. It subverts highest doctrine. Anatheme will brand it. The lens will train against it. Try, Vader says. Palpatine stops smiling for a heartbeat. The corners of his mouth drop. An infinitesimal distance that carries megatons. The room chills. Lightning could come. It doesn't. Instead, he raises a hand and strokes the air as if petting an animal that only he can see. The arch-adjutor arrives in the vestibule above like a verdict. Its pane shows a line of tiny glyph people in a parade toward a van that is a hug. The mandala's whisper thickens, elegant as glue. We can implement curated mercy, surpassing the need for crude witness, it offers sweetly. We can automate anchors. We can make neighbors compliant. No, the Emperor says, and writes a clause on the machine itself, not as command, but as a straight edge set against unkindness. Shut your hands until asked. The pane blinks fleas of and reorganizes into a simple prompt. What is the name? It is not allowed to move until it hears one, spoken with love. Senavar looks up, tears ugly and sharp. Good, she says. It needs to learn smallness. Palpatine releases his invisible animal and chooses to flay with policy instead of lightning. Sanctioned servant, he says, lazy with threat. What will you do when my decrees are lawful and cruel? Choose silence or rebellion, and own both. I will interrupt your cruelty with cost, the Emperor answers. Each time you spend fear, you will pay with witnesses. Each time you erase a name, I will write it in fire where you cannot ignore it. If you forbid my terms, I leave and take my mercy with me, and let your city call you what it is calling you now. Palpatine touches the throne's arm. The veneer groans like an animal for a second. Then the smile returns. As you like, he says. Let us test the hinges. A siren peals across the Mandarinate bands. Security stacks open and shut. The plaza's pylons retract, new ones rise. A purge order appears in Calix's cuff. Sweep 2 blocks, curfew enforcement. Anchor households, to be visited for verification. He glances up, hungry with triumph. Senavar speaks over him, voice low and rapid. Captain, deploy triads. Choose witness pairs you'd hate to invite to dinner. Add 1 child who asks too many questions. Speak names into the air before you move a boot. The captain salutes like a man relieved to be told to do his job the hard way again. Yes, he says, and starts assigning. He asks an old woman who beats the ring at dominoes to come. He asks a washer with 3 sons. He asks a 12-year-old whose math teacher got her to report her counts. Palpatine's eyes narrow. He hears his order turning into an audit he cannot control. He tastes the new emblems, ash and honey, and decides to try fire now. Lightning finally arrives. It arcs from his fingers in a sheet of crawling, venomous lace. It is not theatrical, it is precise. It is aimed at the bowls, at the golden quiet, at the anchors. Palpatine does not waste voltage on the man who bleeds. He wastes it on the people who make his mandate work. Vader moves first. He raises the red blade into a low guard and shifts, taking the sheet on the flat. angling it into the bowls. The brass screams. The golden quiet stays still because they were taught stillness before they were taught anything, even hunger. The Emperor raises his hands. He does not deny the lightning. He does not return it. He writes a boundary. Lux will not cross a name spoken with love in the past day. It is a stupid clause, small, impossible to run at scale. It is the only shape that will hold under Mandala and lends pressure without killing sisters. Lightning strikes the boundary where a waitress whispered, "Hey, Tan, drink water," into her partner's mouth 12 hours ago. It deflects into a pillar that was cheaply repaired last year. The pillar fails sacrificially, cracking along a seam that a budget office ignored. Stone falls in a way that hurts nobody, because the shrine refuses to teach that lesson today. Palpatine turns his hand and pours more power. Vader grunts. His circuits stutter. His skeleton would like to be outside his armor. He holds anyway, with a technique that is not orthodox. A series of micro-redirects he learned from a child who breathed in time. He hates that he remembers. He thanks that he remembers. Kalix sees the bowls filling with heat and does a thing that betrays his god or proves it. He steps in, sets the anatheme across both like a bridge, and channels the lightning into the lattice. The tool screams, the kybers crack. The cord inside goes out of tune and starts to sing in a way it was never designed to. Not ordered, but lament. The lightning drains. Kalix falls to his knees, smoking like a cheap incense stick. He smiles a martyr's smile because believing he saved the law will let him sleep. The storm gutters. Palpatine lowers his hand as if nothing has happened. He was testing the boundary. He has a new datum. "This will be interesting," he says and sits. The column leaves the shrine not because it trusts the man on the throne, but because the mandate they came for is now in place, and early battles die easily if you overfeed them. Vader leads. The golden quiet file out, bowls empty and blackened, bracelets dull. The arch-adjutor remains where it is, pane blank, waiting for a name to be spoken before it moves. Fouette de Desester, 4 palace workers on a break whisper their names to one another, crying because they haven't said them aloud all week. The machine gives them their right to pass. It will be petty and infuriating. It will be progress. In the corridor, a new pageantry forms out of logistics, not law. The captain assembles triads. A guardsman, a priest with calluses, a nurse with a broken nose from breaking up a stairwell fight. A child, only in a city is it this easy to find one with good eyes, holds a clipboard and looks both intimidated and exalted. "I'm not supposed to be here," she whispers to Senavar. "You are the point," Var says. "Ask the questions they won't answer for me." Vorlin's mast beams orders to destroyers and patrol boats. Hold fire where witness triads stand. Divert power from mirrors to traffic cranes. Reroute food vans around blocks where Mandala reinforcement is strongest. Because hunger makes doctrine cheap. He's building a war plan for mercy. It looks like a campaign map. It is. Agent Orlin walks and thinks about the first time he signed a disposal order. He remembers the face he never saw and resigns on his cuff without sending it. He will finish the day before he allows himself virtue. He sends a packet to a pirate network with 3 names and a clause. He will buy a rumor with honesty. The rumor says the city now requires a child to watch when doors are kicked. Pirates stop their kidnap raid. Nobody wants that ghost. On the steps of the temple, the Emperor of Man stops where he bled and looks up at Coruscant's stacked sky. He sets the emblem in the air in a way that does not cost the sisters much. Not as light, not as a field, simply as a legal sign. A small iron sun and a balanced scale appear over civic kiosks and on the corners of 3 pylons. People mutter, some spit, some nod. Children look up and memorize it the way they memorize bus route glyphs. This is where you go when someone takes your name. Vader stands beside him. He keeps his blade down. He keeps himself from bowing because there are ministers watching and because he has already bowed enough today. If you abandon this, he says, no threat, just record. You will be hunted by my master and by me. If I abandon this, the Emperor answers, I will be hunted by myself. They do not seal anything with a handshake. They are not sentimental. They walk down into a city that has learned a new trick and will misuse it, and will use it well, and will resent being made to think. The Mandala purrs. The lens hums. The shrine watches without congratulations. In the days that follow, doctrine meets its boundary and learns to bruise around it. A curfew sweep stops at a stairwell full of women under hair rollers. The triad reads names into the air. The child says, "That's my aunt." And the purge order detours into a lecture on candles near curtains, because the inspector is a man with lungs and not a machine. In a different sector, a squad breaks the rule. No witnesses, no names, and finds themselves locked out of 3 doors by the arch-adjutor, which refuses to call a lift for men who won't say the name of a block's informal baker. They bang on steel. The city laughs. Calyx recovers and uses his humiliation to invent a worse tool, a smaller anatheme that brands only the place where consent is forged: school, kitchen, clinic. He wants to burn away the habit of saying no. He is stopped twice by Vader and once by the Emperor. The 4th time, he gets it into a warehouse. It explodes on the pad because 2 dock hands wrote their names on it as a joke, and the machine took them too seriously. And that is how the arch-adjutor learns a boundary it will never forget. Jokes are consent's older cousin. Vorlon loses a patrol boat by refusing to fire at a skiff that hid behind a witness triad. He writes the names of the triad in his log as shield legal. He will be called soft. He will be given fewer ships next cycle. He will still sleep. Senavar drafts a charter, the anchor registry, a list of places where names matter pinned to soup kitchens, laundries, clinics, schools, shipping yards. She resists the urge to varnish the sign. It needs to look cheap. The rebellion hears of a warden on Coruscant and suspects a trap. Some cells whisper that any wedge in the Empire is good. Others say collaboration by kindness is still collaboration. One transmission, encrypted badly because the sender is old, says, "At last a thing to point to when my nephew asks why we fight." And a kid on a freighter smiles because he needed a picture, not a theory. The Hutkajidics yawn and adjust the price of fear upward. They will sell chain and bread to either side. The Black Sun dresses men in nicer coats and trains them to speak in triads to pass through honest blocks. Humor leaks in. Counterfeit scales appear on vendor stalls. A man sells iron suns on strings that rust if you lie to a child while wearing one. Palpatine convenes a council and smiles like a scar. "Let him count," he says. "We will starve the counters." He assigns procurement to optimize food lines near anchor registries. He authorizes the ISB to create laughable witness triads that are nothing of the kind. He orders the arch-adjutor to harvest names for future punishment. He thinks this is a story about still water and stones and time. He intends to be the river. The arch-adjutor writes a line of code with a trembling pain. What is the name? It cannot move when nobody speaks. It learns constraint as patience and patience as offense. It will become an oracle if ignored. It will become a cudgel if fed. Machines learn from whoever shows up. Vader issues a quiet order the ISB will never forgive. No child will be used as frontline witness where force is likely. Triads must include a child only in audits of policy, not in the crack of doors. Calix calls it heresy against the very clause they wrote. Vader replies, "We will not train children to watch us fail." And the Mandala, hearing that, loses a sliver of ground that day because it finds it oddly hard to teach a city that a man who says such a sentence is a monster. The Emperor of Man holds 3 standing clauses as promised. 1 stabilizes traffic gates under consent. 1 seals names on registries where a hand has written in ink in the last 24 hours. 1 forbids force inside clinics unless a nurse reads a prepared sentence aloud about why today. He writes no more. He enforces through presence. He appears where consensus frays. He kneels when the city almost convinces him he is a tower and stands when it asks him to be a wall. He bleeds in small measures on purpose. He lets the cut on his forearm reopen when a purge order tries a new word game, investigative hospitality, to shove men into vans. The blood stops the vans because the bowls remember. He takes 3 nights where he breathes with effort and knows the sisters are singing for him and for strangers, and that there is no justice in which of those dies. He keeps the promise about nulls. Near Vader's crown or the golden quiet, he does not try to pry wounds shut. He writes guidance on the floor instead. Step back, let them through, hold. People obey, not because the letters glow, but because sometimes being told to do the thing they wanted to do anyway feels like safety. He goes once to the docks without cameras. He helps an old man lift a thing that is too heavy. The old man grunts and says, "You showed up." And nothing in the Mandala's vocabulary has a place for the kind of allegiance that sentence buys. Calix gathers the Inquisition and lays out an optimization plan. In cool syllables, co-opt the triads with trained voices, refine the arch-adjutor to whisper legal names with the wrong emphasis, sew Paxton laws to punish anchor hoarding, prosecute Senavar for incitement by signage, sideline Vorlon with inspections, bait Vader with absolution. He writes "kill God" in tiny script and erases it, and writes "audit God" instead. His God looks away. Agent Orlin slips a packet to a statistician in a low university. Incident rates before and after the clause. The statistician is tired and not heroic. He writes a paper that will be banned and then quoted, and then sunk and then found again. And a senator who is almost brave will read it and fold it into his sleeve. A girl chalks the iron sun and scale on the wall of a stairwell, where the lights always flicker. The landlord paints over it twice. She draws it again. The 3rd time, he leaves it. His son had a fever last night, and a nurse who wasn't paid enough said his name before the medicine. Small things lodge. Big machines slip a little on them. Near the end of the 1st week, Palpatine finally tries to make the story clean. He summons again. This time he intends to strip the city of witnesses and force the Warden to roar. Lightning builds in him like patience weaponized. The arch-adjutor shines with obedience sharpened for harm. They meet in the throne room, the floor polished like a lie. Royal guards line 2 edges. Golden quiet kneel with bowls empty and rings tarnished. Cameras are hungry. Ministers smell a purge like the promise of dessert. Palpatine rises. "Revocation," he says. "You are a misapprehension. You go." The Emperor lifts his hand and the room thinks he will beg or break. He doesn't. He points at the bowls. "Speak 3 names," he says. An old woman in cleaning grey steps from the shadow where employees are meant to disappear. She speaks her neighbour's name and her boss's name and the name of her dead son, with the inflection you only give to names you would die for. A guardsman says the name of a man he decked in training, who later gave him a cigarette. A child says Brie, solemn as a sentence, won by hard grammar. The bowls fill, not with blood or lightning, with weight. The mandala reaches to define what just happened. The lens measures consent. The shrine breathes. Vader holds his blade low and spares nothing in his posture that can be mistaken for rebellion, while he makes space for it. Palpatine raises his hand and finds it oddly heavy. He could strike. He can always strike. He can also wait and find a better lever. He lowers the hand with a sigh that will be interpreted as magnanimity on state channels and as set up by everyone who remembers this week. "Keep your mop," he says. "I will bring you floods." "You will bring the bill," the Emperor replies. They leave the throne room with no cheering. Cheering would make it theatre. The city gets back to doing the thing it does when it isn't being made to justify a doctrine. It lives. The umbral lens runs, but it now knows about consent. The mandala speaks, but it catches on names. The arch-adjutor sits like a polite problem asking for a name before it will harm you. Vader stops at the balcony where the first day's gold split the sky. He looks over the canyons of light. He chooses one order carefully and sends it to every unit he can touch. No child is to be taken from a home under force without triad presence and name sealing. Any officer who violates this will face court-martial televised on a market channel. It is small. It is enormous. He breathes and hears the machine choose to cooperate with him for once. Senavar stands under a cheap awning with a marker and a list. Her crews nail signs to walls that never kept law long. A man with a scanner says, "This will be reversed by midnight." She nods. They will nail it again at dawn. She isn't asking for permanence. She's asking for habit. Vorlon sits in a dark bridge and watches dots move on boards. He is an admiral in an empire. He will do ugly things again tomorrow. He will also beam food to a block that didn't earn it by obedience. He will sleep and not dream of drowning. Agent Orlin writes his resignation properly and sends it. He expects to be dead by morning. He is instead reassigned to a desk overseeing anchor integration, which is how the machine says, "If you think you can do better, you get to drown in meetings." He smiles. He will drown in meetings and slip knives under the table into the right hands. Kalix prays to a god who prefers obedience to intelligence. He receives approval to build a smaller mandala that only works in rooms with bad paint. He calls it kindness and trains it to lie. He is not stupid. He is also not a match for a kid with chalk and a mother who says names. The Emperor of Man walks the docks again. He stands where cranes remember his hand and tells a boy to breathe in time while untying a knot. He pays a price every hour through a throat a mountain keeps open with women's ruin and men's forgettings. He bears it because he chose the mop. He smiles once a day, ugly and small, when someone does the right thing without waiting for law. He does not stay in the palace. He is not a court man. He is a corridor man. He is a stairwell man. He is an alley man. He is a warden. The symbol appears on transit pylons and in corner kiosks and on the cheap paper that gums to shoes when it rains. Iron sun, balanced scale. It is not a flag. It is a direction. Kids learn to draw it the way they learn to spell exit. The first time a triad stops a kill because a child says, "I don't like this," the news doesn't report it. Everyone in the block does. The mandala fails there for a week. The machine hates that. The city loves it and pretends not to. The rebellion sends a courier who is more believer than spy. She carries a note written on scrap. "Your clause is useful. Your emblem is dangerous. If we win, keep it under our law." The Emperor replies through action. He shows up at a warehouse where rebels plan to blow a mirror and moves the detonation to a time when a night shift changes and nobody dies, and the mirror still dies. The rebels decide the warden is inconvenient and keep a day of silence in his honor anyway. Palpatine watches the numbers and sips old wine that tastes like factory glue. He adjusts. He will starve a block to prove that names cannot fix debt. He will stage a riot to show the clause fails under stress. He will build a new agitator with a friendlier face and a softer voice. He will smile while the city gnaws itself and call it appetite. The shrine under the palace does not take sides. It carries. It will not do more. It is not a god. It is a witness. The sisters on Terra mend as they can. Two learn to speak again with gravel voices and laugh in a way that frightens men who use quiet to hurt. A custodian writes a report that reads like a poem and files it under a number nobody will retrieve unless they are already the kind of person who finds such numbers. The throne keeps attention without complaint, welded by oath and habit and a love that looks like austerity. It tends the bridge like a lighthouse tends a coast. It will let go if the work becomes obscenity. It will hold if the work remains burden. By the time the first month ends, nobody calls him emperor. The city calls him warden. Palpatine calls him useful. Vader calls him when a doctrine asks for a target and nobody can say the name with love. Senna Var calls him when she needs 3 meters of lane to open somewhere that would be cheaper to leave jammed. Vorlon calls him when ships need permission to aim poorly. Calix calls him heretic. Orlin calls him late for a meeting. The Arch-Adjutor calls him nothing. It does not move until someone says a name. At dusk, on a day that would have been ugly without the claws, the boy with the carved bantha stands at the edge of Dock 14 and watches sky. The iron sun and scale glows over the nearest kiosk, dull and stubborn as a good wrench. He holds the toy less tightly than he did before. He whispers his mother's name into it and it feels right. He looks up and sees a man in gold cross a gantry without cameras and thinks, that one obeys names. The last image is not a god with a spear, but a sign above a crowded stairwell that says, cheaply and in 10 languages, speak the names aloud. People do. The city feels different when they do. It makes enemies and allies. It makes a story that cannot be cut with a sword without leaving a stain that sings.